seconds again. And there is Smith roaming free. Breaks a tackle. Ohio State strikes quickly from 45 yards.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Second and short, play action, leg way in trouble. Steps up and throws deep. It's caught. Badger.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
He's got to have it right now. And they take a downfield shot. And the catch is made. It's Ryan Williams, still spinning free. Touchdown, Alabama. They answer in one play.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Levitt going to escape from harm and do more than that. Levitt lunging, leaping, touchdown, Sun Devils.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Jeremiah Love breaks free. Jeremiah Love trying to go 98. Touchdown! What a run in the first touchdown of the 12-team playoff.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Thursday afternoon. Hope wherever you are, you've had a really, really good day and the rest of your afternoon. Hopefully, all out of that, if not all of it, with us until 6 o'clock Central. David Smoak, Paul Catalina. He's wearing his FSU Bobby Bowden coaching hat. Craig Smoak with his Rangers hat and his patented hoodie. We appreciate your time today. What does it say about college football? Sometimes you have to read the room. Sometimes you have to know the room. And sometimes it's common sense. But what does it say about college football that three iconic programs, at least that I know of, and not always have been the most successful, but that Texas, USC, and Nebraska, and we knew about Nebraska, we know about USC, that's recent, and now Texas, are not going to host spring games. What does it say about college football?
Well, that it is ever-changing and that spring games are antiquated and they need to change it. I mean, if you're and part of it is they're not really money makers anymore, or if they need to make money on it, they need to do something different than a spring game because outside of a couple places in the country, the enthusiasm of your spring game is directly related to how good you were the previous year. Or if there's a new coach. And even then, if there's a new coach, it may not be. So I don't know what the point of them is anymore because it's just kind of outgrown what it was, and I don't think they can make it go backwards. So now they need to adjust to the new realities of college football and kind of just move them on down the way.
Yeah, I just think they don't really matter as much. I think that's the clearest thing is clearly you're not doing them anymore. They don't matter. They used to matter. They are not nearly as much of a priority. There's other ways to, impress recruits. And, I mean, like, because this used to be a thing. Like, Mac Brown used to have their big jamboree. Like, It was a whole thing. And then everybody was doing, like, let's sell out the spring game. And then, whatever other gimmicks, I guess, that were thrown out there during spring. I mean, it was made out to be like an event in some ways, in some places. Nebraska, a great example of that. And I just think the season's gotten longer. The issues have gotten larger in terms of rosters and all the things that you're juggling as a head coach and just as a program in general. And I think there's a couple examples in the article that was written about this. I was quoting Del Conte and Sarkisian, among others, and talking about their reasons as to why they are not going forward. We know Matt Rule talked a little bit about how he's afraid of poaching, players getting poached because they have a big spring game performance and get noticed by somebody. And I think people downplayed that answer from him as not really being like a driving example. Like it's an understandable one, but it's not really the driving force. I think the driving force is though, are, the money and just where your attention is now. It's not – you don't have to impress recruits with the big spring game anymore. You just offer them money or, show them around at any of the numerous games you're now playing. So it's not as much about, like, look at our facilities. Even though it is, that's not the end-all, be-all, because that's all you could use to flash. You used to park a car out in front of the – like we had, Texas like a year ago? Remember when NIL started getting rolling and they'd park the cars like the Ferraris or Lambos or whatever all out front? Like that's kind of the new era where you can flash stuff, but I just don't think it matters as much the cookie cakes and the trips as much as they used to, because there's other things that are enticing. So, it's just not as much of a pull or as much of a recruiting tool as it used to be. And you're already playing so much football that I think it's one less thing on your plate. So just a lot of reasons as to why, a lot of reasons that add up to make it make sense as to why you would not want to make it as big of a deal anymore. Yeah,
I think, again, those are USC has been more recently down based on their standards, but they have their unbelievable lineage. And Nebraska's been down for almost 2 decades, but they were the king of a spring game. Every once in a while, somebody else would have 80 to 100,000, but they did it for how many could fit inside the stadium. They're changing, and now UT, which is among the top 5 programs in America, have decided not to do one either.
Yeah, it's a situation where Texas in particular, we mentioned Matt Rule, he talked about the poaching aspect of it, although, like I said, that wasn't really like the key probably driving force, but it's a reason. Del Conte, on the other hand, pointed out that Texas played 4 extra games than pretty much everybody else in the entire country.
Yep.
So they played a whole month of an extra season, and so they don't really probably feel the need to, like, let's get back to football right away and get back in the pads. And also, you're losing like 15 guys to the NFL. Your roster's completely in flux. I think everybody's worried about poaching to a certain extent, but they're also just worried about, I think more so than that, of why am I going to put all this effort into spring when some of you guys are just going to leave right after it's over anyways? I think that's the as big of an issue as anything is we pour into you and then you just bolt right before the summertime. So it's like, what are we doing here,
I also, just from a functional standpoint of you only get, 15 practices, 20 practices 15. Or whatever, 15 practices. Well, now I have to make one of those like an entertainment event. I'd rather just have a practice and call it a day.
Yeah, and if in fact there are always changes that are just constant. We had Jamie Pollard on yesterday. Oh, by the way, Gene Taylor, the AD at Kansas State, is going to be on with us very soon. Tom Homo is going to join us from BYU, outgoing AD in about 15 minutes. You don't even know half the time if it's going to change from week to week, much less semester to semester. So,
well, did you read the article on the spring games? Del Conte said this is just a year thing. Like, it's not a permanent decision.
And when Chris Kleiman brought that up, I'm like, damn, that makes sense about the OTAs if that ever goes to something like that.
Well, Del Conte said this is not like we're not doing spring games at all anymore. He said this is like they played an extra month. So this year it's not good for them. Sarkisian did say he likes the OTAs, though. So I think there's enough coaches that the spring's not going to go away, but the jamborees and the let's sell out for the 15th consecutive year just to show how badass our fan base is and to impress recruits, like that's a lot less of a priority than it used to be because you can impress them in different ways now. And it, as Matt Rule said, is more of like a fan event as much as anything. And he believes there's different ways to entertain fans nowadays rather than, trying to sell out a spring game. So, Sark's in favor of OTAs. We've heard other coaches talk about that. I'd imagine that spring will probably turn into some form of OTAs, like if it falls in the month of March and April, or if it, goes along with a new calendar of sorts where it's closer to the season. I think that's the stuff that gets worked out now. But there will be something. It's just not going to be spring. It'll probably be OTAs, for better or worse for college football fans out there who cringe at the idea of becoming more and more like the NFL every day. I think, unfortunately, if you're worried about that, this is another area where they're probably going to start following the lead of the NFL as far as having organized team activities.
Mike Norvell, Florida State, will not have theirs, but they're renovating Doak Campbell Stadium, so that has a lot to do with it, with all the construction and more. But he also said that this seems to be more of what the trend will be. And maybe, unlike a lot of decisions like the transfer portal, NIL, or whatever else, they get football coaches in a meeting It doesn't matter whether the head coach at North Dakota State or the head coach at Georgia. Get them in a meeting with people who make decisions as well, not just to commissioners. Really, this has nothing to do with commissioners, but ADs and those who are involved in the athletic department and programs. And this is football. And decide what is best. Maybe you get 12 or 15 practices in April or whatever you want to do it based on the regionality, weather, etc., semester timing, calendar, and then you still get something during the summer similar to what are off the field or, OTAs, organized team activities. Mike Gundy, let's go to the Miami story. So you want to go play in Miami? This is probably unfair to the city of Miami.
Not that unfair.
But Carson Beck, of course, at Georgia, hell of a player, transferred to Miami, had 2 cars stolen in South Florida last night. His girlfriend, Hannah Cavender, of course, a star basketball player. Her SUV was also stolen, but they found that. So a Mercedes and a Lamborghini right now that Carson Beck owned are at least on the run, or somebody is on the run with them. And that's interesting. They got hit pretty good.
Okay, you said it's not fair
to
the city of Miami.
It could get stolen in
no.
Tuscaloosa.
Well, it didn't get stolen in Athens. But look, Miami, I'll just tell you, I'm going to list off movies that take place in Miami, and you tell me which one does not involve crime.
Okay. Too
Fast, Too Furious. Okay. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
That seems to be a little bit soft.
It was about the theft and kidnapping of a dolphin, and Dan Marino. Let's see.
Poor dolphin.
Yeah. Okay, Any Given Sunday, probably not. Bad Boys 2, Bad Boys for Life, Bad Boys Ride or Die.
All right, just name all the Rocky movies now.
Well, no,
probably be easier to name the ones that aren't crime movies.
Yeah, seriously, all of these movies. Okay, Miami Vice, crime.
Scarface.
Crime.
Scarface was, absolutely, yeah. When the guy got put in the shower and had his arms and whatever cut off. Oh, God.
Cocaine Cowboys.
Yep.
Yep. I'm looking at this list of all this stuff sat here.
All right, so they are bad
like
people.
5-1.
Miami's a bad place.
No,
Miami has crime movies, yeah.
They do crime. Like, crime is kind of a thing there. Look, when Craig, I told you this on the text, Craig, when he, a few years ago, found some Super Bowl tickets when we were at Radio Row on the table right behind him. And every one that we brought, as we went down the line of who do we give these to, ultimately we wound up talking to a policeman for the better part of 40 minutes while we waited for the person whose tickets they were to come and get them. Everyone was like, whoa, I can't believe you're bringing these back. And it's because this is Miami. People don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I have morals, so I wasn't just going to swipe somebody's super expensive Super Bowl tickets. I'm also not a dumbass and was going to sit there and walk up on game day, get them scanned, and then the alarm goes off, and it's like, oh, they've been looking for these. I mean,
you're not Josh Jacobs.
I mean, I'm not a thief, but I'm also not stupid. And I mean, for all I know, that's a setup to sting some media member who's stealing Super Bowl tickets, you know. And I'm sorry, it's just not worth the risk for me to. Maybe it works and maybe it doesn't, but yeah, there were a lot of people surprised by somebody turning in Super Bowl tickets, and I think there was even an old co-host of ours that I think thought I was a dumbass of sorts for doing that, but. You know what? I didn't go to jail, and I felt good on my conscience about it. So, different strokes for different folks. But can we get to the point of the story about this? Is that there were some cars stolen. We're talking about how criminal Miami's reputation is, but the story is that Carson Beck, Miami quarterback, as you said, had his car stolen overnight, and cars, plural, I think is what a lot of people are attaching themselves to, a Mercedes and a Lamborghini. And as you mentioned, Hannah Cavender, his girlfriend's SUV, stolen, but they found her car. So, yeah, a lot of people having fun with this, a lot of people raising their eyebrow in a, sarcastic and also I think for some people probably serious way of, why do you need 2 cars and much less a Mercedes? Well, if you can afford them and hey, if you're making that kind of money, man, do what you want to do with it, boo-boo. I'm not judging that whatsoever, but I'm definitely judging the decision-making of how you're storing those vehicles, and you probably need some extra security. I think that's very clear from today's story, and it's just that's wild, man. So welcome to Miami moment, I guess, for Carson Beck, and I don't know. I guess they'll track these down, or he'll just replace them, or whatever he's going to end up doing. But he's living right in Miami, that's for sure. Those NIL bucks are definitely being put to use, and we'll see, what his on-field action turns into eventually here in a few months. But this is easily the biggest story of his Miami career thus far. You just hope that there's bigger stories down the line on the field that trump this eventually. But, that's definitely a welcome to Miami moment.
All right, so I looked it up. Miami is among the top 20 most crime-ridden cities in America. Number 1, Memphis. Number 2, St. Louis.
Definitely can see
Number 3, Little Rock, Arkansas.
Oh, yeah.
Not far from Memphis.
Minneapolis at number 4. Detroit, 5. Kansas City, 6. And then New Orleans, Cleveland, Birmingham, and Houston at number 10.
I mean, it doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of crime in Miami.
Yeah. I was wondering, did I say Baltimore? Was Baltimore in there? I thought Baltimore was among the highest when it came to per capita, and they're in the top 22. So there we are with that, and the story of Carson Beck and his girlfriend, Cavender. Her SUV has been recovered.
Maybe there'll be dumbasses like that South American pro sports robbery gang, and they'll post selfies in the car.
No, they will.
Here in a few days,
they
and
want
the
attention.
police can track them down like they did those guys. But, that sucks. But I'm sure he's fully insured. I'm sure even if he wasn't, Miami will help a brother out. So, yeah, it sucks, but I'm not surprised. I mean, that's big city living, man. We were in New Orleans a couple years back for the Sugar Bowl. I guess it's more than a couple years back. And we had right in the middle of the city, like just dudes breaking into cars right next to the hotel.
Yep.
Nobody's saying call the police or going, get inside. Like, just don't even worry about it.
Most people take videos on their camera of it, yeah.
So, like, it's just part of the big city living, and Miami's definitely got its fair share. But when you're driving around in flashy stuff, you got to be mindful, and you got to be smart about it, because there are definitely people looking to take advantage, and certainly some people were either just noticed or were maybe even watching, he got. So that sucks.
Kim Coulter, I'm at a Mercedes dealership right now, and I think Kim is transitioning to an old man Mercedes, that he has been suggested it's time for him to calm down with a sports car. Mike Gundy, Robert Allen will join us. He's the sideline analyst for Oklahoma State. I laughed my ass off when I saw this. The only pressure I'm worried about after they had their just awful year is about my tire pressure on these icy roads, and when my wife asked if I'm almost home and I'm only on number 13, which if you're on 13, you have a third of the course still to play and at least an hour and a half, most likely, if not 2, to finish up, and you have to say, And so there's Mike Gundy. Some people just don't get him. Maybe it's because I'm older. I do get him. There's some things he says that are just dumb. I get it. But Robert Allen will join us about the pressure and Mike Gundy.
Guy in the hot seat says what now? I mean, he's never had a fight with his administration before, at least a very public one, like he did this past offseason. So, I mean, he probably doesn't sit around and worry about it, but to him to not acknowledge that things are different.
If Mike Gundy was fired at the end of next year, how many jobs would want him to be their head coach?
I'm sure a few. I'm sure a few.
I mean, he would have no problem getting a job.
Yeah,
I mean, he would have absolutely no problem getting a job. He's a really good coach. He's been there for forever. I think we've seen kind of the way things have ebbed and flowed at Oklahoma State, and here's of late, certainly a lot more criticism because of last year's team just not panning out in any way, shape, or form the way that you thought. He's got a $15 million buyout. He's made tons of money. He's made millions of dollars. He should never have to coach again or work again if he doesn't want to, but he does strike me as the type of guy that at minimum he's going to be like a farmer in his coaching post-life. He's kind of that anyways right now, but certainly he could fill his time with other activities. So I think he's kind of a guy that's, I mean, what does he have to lose, really? I mean, he has the job to lose, but at this point I almost wonder if he cares because he's been in this situation so many times, whether it was issues with the powers that be at Oklahoma State or just ruts along the way. He's remarkably steady, has never quite reached the mountaintop especially not as much as you would like him to. But yeah, he's about as close to untouchable as you can be, although no one's untouchable. So I think that's an answer of a guy who's like, fine, fire me. And also, realizes like at this point, I've been here, I've done this. I'm not going to sit here and sicken myself over maybe not, especially in freaking February when we don't even play a game till August. Like, what's the point of sitting here and worrying about this right now? Nothing's changing for the next 6-7 months. So, yeah, why worry yourself over that? But I do think that's also a little bit dangerous. If you're an Oklahoma State fan reading that, you're like, well, I hope you care more than the quote maybe leads on to you caring, and I think that he does, but I also feel like, yeah, you're near 60 years old at this point. You've made millions of dollars. You've been there for a couple decades plus, not even counting your playing career. Like, what more can you do? I mean, outside of winning championships, he's about done it all. So, I think he's just a guy who's kind of playing with house money, and he's not going to be worried about all the outside noise. He's just not that type of guy.
I don't think it means he's not paying attention. I don't think it means he's being aloof or arrogant. I just think he kind of has a good grasp of who he is, where he is, and what are the expectations and what happens if things don't get better. UT looking for a running backs coach ever since Tashard's choice. Took the job with Dan Campbell in Detroit. They've taken now Chad Scott, running backs coach out of West Virginia, high profile, lots of credentials. There were others who were in the mix. There was even, and I don't know if I actually said it on the air, there were even some thoughts I had heard from people who are Baylor fans about Keenan Hall, who's among the top 5 best paid running back coaches in the country. You never know, but it is Chad Scott from West Virginia who takes that job with Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah, and he's had some good ones. C.J. Donaldson, who's now at Ohio State, among them most recently. So we'll see. I mean, I think that I don't know if he was on the Texas Stan Drayton, Rashad Samples, best running back coach in the NFL kind of fan list, but Steve Sarkisian knows what he's doing. He's kind of batting. He's got a pretty high batting average with assistance since he's been at Texas.
Well, I mean, West Virginia. Say what you want to, they've run the ball really well. They're one of the best running teams in the entire country here of late. So the last couple seasons, they've been really good under Chad Scott, and so I think that on paper, that's a nice hire. It's not the one that's going to blow you away, though. Obviously, like you're mentioning names, it would be more of the splashy hire. This is not necessarily a splashy hire, but I think it's a really solid hire, and I'm not going to question any offensive coaching decision that Steve Sarkisian's making because I feel like he's about on the ball as anybody. I think there's times where you can question his play calling in certain situations, and that was the case during their playoff run. But certainly a guy who has an eye for what works offensively and especially in his system, and a guy in Chad Scott who's definitely got positive attributes and proof in the pudding here, in the recent past. So a guy who's been a good thing for West Virginia and somebody that Rich Rod retained when he took the job is now out the door. So, yeah, that's a loss for the Mountaineers, and that's a nice pickup for Texas, it appears, even though it's not necessarily the one that's just going to blow your doors off when you read the headline.
They were 27th last year in the country in rushing offense with Scott, the running backs coach, and obviously West Virginia and the head coaching change with Neil Brown. So there we are with that.
And he's the guy who was the interim when Neil Brown got fired. So they're top 10 rushing the past couple seasons. They've got a really solid run game, and he's a guy who's been a big part of that staff. So that's, again, appears to be a nice hire for Texas.
We will have BYU Director of Athletics Tom Homo join us in a moment. Garrett, you want to break here and get that not out of the way, but get that done, and then we'll have plenty of time with Tom and the AD at BYU, outgoing AD, and then Sam Kahn, Robert Allen, Mickey Spagnuolo, off the radar, top 5 and more. We'll look at the Houston schedule this year coming up in 2025, and this is, and thank you for your time as always, 365 Sports.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
President's Day sales event is on at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive home a 2025 Jeep Compass for just $25,995, or a 2024 Dodge Hornet for only $27,995. Only at Allen Samuels.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Waiting on Tom Homo, the AD at BYU. We'll have him and Sam Kahn also this first hour. I read a lot of different stories and how people were reporting the meetings between the SEC and the Big Ten, which we discussed quite a bit Monday, Tuesday, even Wednesday, with those who were writing about them or even those involved in college football with their opinions. This was from theathletic.com. When asked about the organization of any kind of Big Ten, SEC, annual college football weekend, so to speak, Josh Whitman, the AD at Illinois, we didn't talk about it. From Nebraska's Troy Dandon, who was at Washington, I don't think there's anything imminent. So the more and more I read this story, Greg Sankey then saying that let's get back to Nashville when they have their annual SEC meetings and perhaps also the powwow with the Big Ten. I said we can leave it the way it was or the way it is. We can play more. Without a firm agreement, we could also do something definitive. We have 3 options. We still, even at this time, have 3 options. So that's one of the notes from yesterday's meetings between the SEC and also the Big Ten. We are joined by Tom Homo, the AD of BYU. Great to see him. How you doing, man? Good to see you.
What's going on? Great to be with you today.
Good to see you. I hope you don't mind me asking. You've done an amazing amount for BYU as an athlete, a student, representing the school, your alma mater, and as AD too. Was it just time for you to look to something else, to smell the roses, so to speak? or has the changing landscape in college athletics perhaps also been a part of your decision?
Yeah, let me answer. That's a good question because I think it's a little bit of both. The first is, I turned 60 a couple years ago, and I thought people started coming up to me saying, "Hey, when are you going to retire? Are you going to retire?" And I'm like, "Hey, leave me alone. I'm doing fine. I'm fine." And then 61, 62, 63, 64, I just kept going. And then last summer, I was at the beach in Southern California, down by my home where I grew up, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. So it was right there. So that part of it, I just hadn't really been looking forward to, but I knew it was right. The second part of it, though, is the interesting part. I'm super excited about the future of BYU athletics. I'm excited about the future of athletics across the country in general. I think that we have a good finger on the pulse of where we need to go. But like every other athletic director and department, we are really not exactly sure where it's going, but we're all going at the same pace. I think it's fair. We're all going to have to use be at our strategic best to figure out NIL and roster limits and transfer portal and all the things that are going on. And there will always be changes in the world of college athletics or sports in general. And so I'm not afraid of what's coming. I just think it's important that we have someone at BYU that can start right now that can hit the next 5 years. Next 5 years are going to be critically important.
Yeah, and look, Tom, you've done a lot. It's time to go smell the roses a little bit. What do you have you thought about what retirement looks like for a guy who works as hard and as much as you do?
Not really. I mean, my wife and I have talked about this a lot. We just feel that I have 10 grandkids and one on the way that's due next week. So that'll make number 11. And I just feel like this is the right time. All I can say is there's no magic number of how many years I had to be here or what age I had to be at, because I've had like 3 kind of different careers. As a professional player, I was a athletic coach, and I'm an administrator. So like the numbers really don't mean anything to me. It's just a matter of whether I feel I can give 100% every day of the week. And I'm at that point right now where I can, but I do not want to be at the point a year from now or half a year from now where all of a sudden I'm feeling like, I should have made this decision last year. So we're in a good spot for us to pass the baton. I want the next AD to take this thing and let's roll. Let's go, Cougs.
Tom, you talk about being in a good spot. Football obviously had an incredible season, and you could argue should have had even maybe more there at the end of the rainbow if those in charge viewed you guys a little bit differently or similar to how they apparently viewed other teams. But that aside, you guys went to the bowl game, beat Colorado, and left no doubts about just how good of a team you were. And then here with basketball as well, I know there's various other sports, but can't overlook the big win over Kansas and just how much attention that's brought and how much excitement that has brought with the job just Kevin Young's doing, the Marriott Center, just how much energy and excitement for people who haven't experienced or haven't seen it maybe is surrounding BYU basketball right now.
Well, it's good. I mean, we had a surprise when Coach Pope left to take the job at Kentucky. He had done a very, very good job for us. And we had a really good hire with Kevin, and Kevin's off and running. I think one of the things that makes it so exciting is that BYU Cougar Nation, BYU fans across the country and here at home have been chomping at the bit for 50 years trying to get into what was considered a P5 or whatever you want to call it, Autonomy 5 conference. And I think a lot of this is how it's all come together where we're in a good spot with our coaches and our student athletes. And then the Big 12 opportunity came along. We are enamored with Big 12. We love every site. We love the teams. We love the travel. We love everything about it because, man, I just made a road swing with our basketball team, went to Cincinnati and West Virginia. Those were 2 tough games. And one thing that a lot of our fans had not seen forever is that every single game that you come to at LaVell Edwards Stadium or the Marriott Center with the Big 12 is going to be a battle royal. And our fans love every second of that. And so I think that being in the conference right now, we respect this conference so much that it's just the perfect stars are aligned right now for us to hit it and then just compete. Because, man, we had a really, really good year this year and didn't win the conference in football. And we're having a really, really good year in basketball, and we're in 5th place. So what's that all about? That is super competitive. I love it.
Yeah, damn Houston, Iowa State, and Arizona, and everybody else. Could your legacy have did getting BYU into the conference? Because there was a time a few years ago, but by getting in it and now being a part of it before you decide to move on, does this solidify in any way your legacy or validate it?
I don't really get hung up on that. I'm not a big legacy guy. I think the thing that I appreciate the most as I look back at my tenure is that we've had some of the most amazing student athletes and coaches here that you could ever dream of. And I don't even want to start naming them, but you could. The record books are full. We've had players of the year at the conference level, at the national level. We've had Hall of Fame coaches. And just the quality of these kids for my 20 years. I just ran into one of our Olympians in track and field on the track before I got on this call from a few years ago. And I cherish that. If there's anything that can top having a great relationship with our student athletes and coaches, I want to know what it is, because I don't think there's anything that tops that.
Do you have a different perspective or maybe some unique experiences because you had to navigate being an independent in football for so long, even though that was not the stated goal of the school was always to be in a major conference so that you could be playing on the stage that has helped inform these last couple of years of change for you, because you guys had to kind of navigate it differently for a while anyway.
Yeah, there was no question that independence was a big help for where we are today, getting into the Big 12. And I go back and say that we didn't really intend to be independent for this many years, 11 years. We thought we could jump in, show what we got, and someone would pick us up. Not so fast. Basically, it was a really rough stretch. But what it did do is it solidified Cougar Nation. We played football games across the country. We played in NFL stadiums. We'd play anytime, any day, anywhere. And we got to play some awesome teams that we would not have been afforded to play if we had been in a conference. And so what happened is not only playing those games, but we got to our people. So we have a ton of BYU alums that live in the South. And so we went down and played Ole Miss and Arkansas. And I can't think of all of them right now, but a number of really great teams from the South. We played a great number of teams in the state of Texas. We went back and played teams, Boston College on the East Coast. We played Michigan. And I think that gave us a great deal of exposure. And our teams weren't always great during those years, but I think people started to recognize, hey, they're playing the big dogs on the road, and it did well for us. So it gave us the exposure we needed and access on TV, because we had an agreement with ESPN and all of our games were on TV.
I brought the success in football up earlier and kind of poked at the obvious when it came to the end of your guys' season when the CFP really didn't seem to, I guess, publicly maybe give you as much consideration as a lot of people felt that you guys deserved. Just how did you handle that whole process? I mean, being in that mix and being in that discussion and, being probably disappointed, I would imagine, to some extent. But how did Tom Holmoe and BYU football just kind of wrap your heads around that experience, and what did you take away from it, and how were you left feeling about it all, even here a couple months later?
Sure. I come from a belief that if you were good enough to make it, they would have voted you in. And so I feel like Kalani Sitake and myself, we got together often and said, Kalani, they might not let us in. We feel like we have a good team. But if they don't, we'll get better. We had a good team. We're going to build off of this. But you can't beg to get into these things. And it was a little bit tough for me to see teams or people begging to get in. And I served on the men's basketball committee at one time a number of years ago. And I know what it was like to be on that committee. We did everything we could to be fair and honest and put the best teams in. And for those years that I was on the committee, every single year, someone had a complaint. So that's just the way it's going to be. The best teams get in. And I know that Kalani and our team this year said, let's not leave any doubt. Let's just be one of the ones that gets in. Don't be number 12. Be number 5. Be number 4. Get there. Do what you have to do to get there. So I think that this experience this year said we traveled down the road quite a bit, and there's still a long ways to go on the journey, but we're moving right towards that.
Well, you've experienced that as a school university before when you were looking at becoming or getting out of independent. Big 12 back in 2000,
yes,
when Nebraska and Colorado left. BYU and some of the schools that are still out there were in the mix. How close, actually, Tom, were you to being a part of the Big 12 when they accepted West Virginia and TCU?
Well, there was that time, but even going back before that, I wasn't here, but as the, urban legend has it at BYU, was that we were in, and then the governor of Texas just said, no, Baylor's going in. And so if I have any beef to pick, it's with Baylor.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a beef with Baylor, but that's what it is. It's the same exact thing. If you're good enough to bring in at the time, they'll get you. And so like those times, it wasn't significant enough. And then this time when Bob Bowlesby was at the head of the conference and working with the presidents of the conference, we tried. There was a time they put an RFP. We went down and we made a presentation, and I believe we knocked their socks off. We showed them what BYU does as far as TV, as far as demographics across the country, where our fans are in the Big 12 footprint. And I think the people from the Big 12 were like, whoa, that would be helpful to have in our conference. But we didn't get in. They decided not to expand. And it was a few years down the road that they said, let's go. And look, we've performed well in the Big 12 with our sports, but I think that it's a year-to-year thing. You can never, ever rest on your laurels in this conference. You got to bring it every game, every week, every year. And I just was watching one of our teams that's a fall team, women's volleyball practicing, and they're getting after it like there's no tomorrow for next year, because that women's volleyball schedule in the Big 12 is tough.
Director of Athletics at BYU, Tom Homo, with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, by the way, they decided not to keep us in with Texas and Oklahoma for historical reference on that, Tom. I know you're too nice of a guy to throw that out there, but when this all went down, Bob Bowlesby went to the Senate here in Texas and laid it all out because he had nothing to lose at that point. I'm curious about your passion for Halloween. And something that, I hope we still get to see on social media, even though now you'll be retired. Where did that come from, and where did you decide to ratchet it up along the way?
All right, here we go. So I was here as the athletic director at BYU, and our women's soccer team dresses up as a team every year. Not exactly the same, but they all dress up, and they have actually a kind of pseudo practice for a little bit. And the day before this practice, they came to me and said, Tom, what are you going to dress up as tomorrow? I said, what are you talking about? And they said, well, you have to dress up tomorrow. I said, okay. So I went home, and this is like 13, 14 years ago. And I said to my kids, hey, what should I be for Halloween tomorrow? And they said, why don't you be Justin Bieber? So I wore a gold chain and a little T-shirt. They put a little funky wig on me. I went to school the next day and got laughed at and super criticized. And I'm pretty competitive. So I said, all right, Tom, what are you thinking about? Who are you? What are you supposed to do to rip me up? And I said, all right, game on. We'll see you next year. And the rest is history.
Tom, going back to the Big 12, and that's great. I think it's a lot of fun. I'm glad Paul brought that up. But going back to the Big 12, you probably didn't have much of an idea. I mean, I don't know what everybody knows, but you probably didn't have much of an idea when you guys were getting in finally that there was going to be more to follow soon from the Pac-12 because of all that happened there. But what's it like to look around. We've talked to a lot of people about how cool it is to have Utah and BYU in the same conference, but to have that and to look around, and there's Arizona on the schedule, and there's Arizona State, and here's Colorado, and this whole sort of western part of the conference, so to speak. How enjoyable is that to kind of have some close proximity that maybe you weren't expecting originally when you joined the Big 12?
Yeah, I think it's just gravy. When I came to BYU to play football in 1978, Arizona and Arizona State were in the WAC.
Yeah.
They weren't in the Pac-10. It was the Pac-8. And so after my freshman year, they joined the Pac-10. So to be able to reunite with our arch rivals, the University of Utah, and bring in Arizona and Arizona State, as well as Colorado, which is a great regional team for us, that is just pure, thick gravy. I love every bit about it. It kind of caused a little bit of a stir, I think, for the legacy teams in the Big 12 because of travel. But like, we just live in a day and age right now where travel for student athletes is a factor. But when you're talking about the competitiveness of conferences, and you're looking at Cal and Stanford in the ACC and UCLA and USC and Washington and Oregon in the Big 10, what about geography? Come on now. We just got to work through this, folks. In the world of college athletics, I said this earlier, not just college, but any sport. Sports about change. Sports about transitions. And we in the Big 12 are still in a big transition. We might be set, so to speak, with these 16 teams. But if you follow Commissioner Yormark at all, he's never set. He's never going to be standing still. And he's always challenging our schools, our ADs and presidents. Let's do everything we possibly can to get better. And I'm all for that.
Can that happen? Yes, by cultivating and creating and developing talent. But can that happen as long as every time there's money and a pie that the Big 12 is getting less of that, and other conferences like the SEC and Big 10 are getting more of it when they already have more of it?
Good question. And the answer is yes, that is definitely a factor. But, I mean, there was a way in which we got the four corner schools, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, Arizona State. There was somehow, some way, people came to the table and they negotiated a really good settlement. And I just believe that if it's to be, it might not be this time. So there's been some talk, and I'm not going to get into it, but y'all know about it, about some possibilities. And it's tabled right now, and it's kind of out up in the iCloud right now. But we'd be crazy not to always consider the possibilities. And you can have it on the back burner, but when the time is right and you have to strike, you got to be ready.
Last thing, I know you got other things to do. As every day of an AD of a college athletics program, where do you, and is there one of the Super Bowl rings you won with San Francisco that you wear more than the others?
I don't wear any of them. And I did for a while. When I first wore them, I don't think I took them off. I slept in it. But that was in '84. But I think as I grew older, one of the things that it was just a lesson I learned, and people asking me all the time now, what have you learned as an AD? Well, it's not as an AD, it's just what have I learned in my life? And that is that it's not about the events as much as about the people. And, those rings, they're flashy. They're way too big for my small little hands. And I think that when I look at them, I see the jewels that are on there. I see my teammates and the coaches on that team. And it's become somewhat sacred to me that it's not about showing off that, because what those rings mean to me are the family that we had and the players that I have a text thread on this phone with 49er DBs from the late 70s and early and through the 80s, through all those Super Bowl teams. And we have about 15 to 18 guys that are talking often once a week. That was a long time ago.
Jeez. You
can't take that away. And I would trade in my rings for this text of connecting with my teammates. So instead of bringing them out, I have 4 kids and 4 rings. And I told the kids when the time's right, they're yours.
Oh, that's awesome. The roar of the crowd as a former player, but the locker room, the camaraderie, all of that is – and now what you see as student-athletes grow up in front of you and move on to do what you do, maybe down the road because of the culture at BYU and elsewhere where you've been. That's awesome. Thank you. Congratulations. We might try to get you on one more time, man.
Let's do it.
I love the stories that you tell us. Appreciate your time, Tom, and have a great weekend.
Thanks. You guys got a lot of energy. Good luck to the Baylor.
Thank you. Baylor, BYU Director of Athletics, Tom Homo, with us, and a fiery guy. And also, imagine being a multi-Super Bowl champion and then also being a part of it. And, you know, they had their opportunities a couple of different times, as he mentioned, to be a part of the Big 12. Did not work out. They didn't give up. That's why Memphis and others, no matter what it looks like now, don't give up what your goals might be.
Yeah, you're welcome, realignment fans, on the quote there about being ready and staying ready. I mean, I think we know that's what they've always done, and Yormark's been very out front about that. But he's specifically referring to ambiguous but very still you can tell situation. And so, yeah, I think the Big 12 will stay ready and be ready to react, although he'd also said the word as of now tabled because of recent headlines. We talked about that as well. But, yeah, I mean, I think you've got a really good thing going right now in Provo. He's going to hand it off to whoever that is, and they're going to be inheriting a program that's got a lot of upside, man, that's flexing their muscles and having a pretty good year. But there's a lot more that you can get out of that, and they're set up really, really well.
Appreciate his time.
I think it's kind of strange with we got Sam right now, but with David Boren passing away, we talked about that, but like Texas and Oklahoma, that was a big deal. Like David Boren was the one at Big 12 Media Days who announced they were going to have hey, we're going to take all these meetings and we're going to have people in for realignment. And ultimately they decided not to do it, which was Texas and Oklahoma didn't want to go with it. But yeah, I'm glad to get that little nugget of history on that first pass that they made at the Big 12 before the Big 12 when the two of the Big 12 said no.
Well, it's not as if the Big 12, Sam Kahn joins us, but West Virginia and TCU were two really good additions, too. Yeah. And TCU at the time was red hot coming off that unbeaten Rose Bowl team, Andy Dalton and Patterson and company. There he is, Sam Kahn. I don't know how much of that you got to listen to. I'm not sure about the connection when you're on Zoom and somebody else is, too. But your thoughts about how BYU has fit in, it seems like very smoothly involved with the Big 12.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been a really good fit and a really good addition to the conference. Certainly it's geographically a challenge for some schools, but I mean, we're in the era where geography really isn't a huge factor in conferences anymore. It's more a collection of TV inventory for partnership. And I think they add good inventory because they're good across multiple sports. And you look at that football program, I know they struggled in the outset, but they were right there in the thick of the college football playoff race and the Big 12 title race this year. I think Kalani Sitake is a good coach who's run a really solid program. They've been fairly consistent over his time there. And honestly, if you go back and look at their history, they have been a really consistent quality program for decades now. I mean, maybe they'll have some valleys here and there, but for the most part, they're a good team that you can consider to be a factor on a fairly regular basis. So I thought they were a really good addition to the conference, as have been the Four Corner schools that they added from the Pac-12 as well. And it's added really a new level of excitement, and I found it intriguing. Like, I find myself more intrigued by the Big 12 now than maybe even before, just because there's so much new, and I think these schools have really added a lot to the league.
Sam, what are your thoughts on what appears to be the impending expansion of the playoffs and AQs and all of that?
I think you guys know how I feel about this.
That said it all right there, Sam.
I hate it. It's BS. I've never been in favor of multiple automatic qualifiers. There should only be one for every conference. That's it. We're jumping through all these hoops to expand the playoff after only 1 year. And I would say the first year went pretty well. And I would like to see a second year, and then maybe we can talk, but it's such a small sample size. And to me, it's just such a disjointed way to do it. We're basing it on past performance, which I find it funny because the College Football Playoff Selection Committee always says that we only take into account this season and this season's results, but yet we're trying to now change the playoff based on past conferences performances. There's only one real. If you want to take a lot of the subjectivity out of it, there's only real one way to do it. It's go to the FCS model. Either do 16 or 24 and give every conference champion a bid, and then fill the rest out with at-larges. Now, if you want to fill it out with the rest of the at-larges with a formula, or you want to do it with committee, whatever. The NCAA tournament, basketball tournament has this model, and the FCS has this model, and Division II has this model, and Division III has this model, and it works pretty well. And, oh, by the way, the NFL has a pretty objective model, too. There's no ambiguity about who goes in the NFL playoffs. I don't understand why we have to jump through all these hoops to create a playoff. I know why it is we have to do it. I don't know why we allow it to happen, but I know why we have to do it. And the reason we have to do it is because the most powerful conference commissioners in sport want to, and they just want to stack the deck in their favor, and that's crap.
Sam, so a 2014 playoff, would that mean 10 SEC, 10 Big Ten, and then one from the Big 12? Yeah.
Yes, that would be it. But, the reason I say 24, though, and not 16, I've always been in favor of the 16, which would be, I think, how many conferences do we have now? 10. So that'd be 10 plus 6 at-larges. But you're going to have your power conferences belly aching about how many of their teams to get in. So just do 24. Then you get 10, your 10 guaranteed champs, and then you get 14 at-larges. So then that way you can have, the Big Ten, the SEC are going to have a bunch of those at-larges, but at least you've given everyone a seat at the table. You've given even Conference USA, and I know people will say, well, Conference USA doesn't deserve to be in there. But you really don't know that unless you actually put them in and maybe they will win a game. Right. We would also say that about the NCAA tournament and the team that's a 16 seed, and then you have a 16 seed upset a 1. And it's happened a couple times now. And you have 15 seeds who you would say, well, that team doesn't deserve to be in there. And then they end up going to the Sweet 16. It's not about who wins the national championship. It's just about having a fair and equitable access to it. That's it. Because you know what? When you go to the FCS playoffs, Division II playoffs, Division III playoffs, guess what? The same teams end up in the Final Four winning all the time. So I don't think it would fix that issue, but at least you're not deciding it arbitrarily ahead of time, and you're giving even the Texas high school football playoffs is more equitable than this. You get 4 teams from every district. I like that. That's fine. And then everything plays out on the field.
And you know what? And you're right. North Dakota State has won a slew of national titles, and it's not them; it's been others. And back in the day when Youngstown State or others, whatever classification, Whitewater. You're right. So at least
Mountain Union.
Mountain Union. So it does make sense. I don't know how many is too many. I'm like you are. Can we at least? There were thoughts after the first weekend they got to tear it up and do something different because Indiana got blown out. In their game. But I don't understand why it's so hard. But then again, I do, because you're talking about greed, money, and power.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all it is. In that way, it's the most American sport, right? The college football probably mirrors
greed, money, and power. Yeah,
that's right. So yeah. We're reimagining how we're going to decide SEC championship weekend and conference championship weekend. First of all, if we expand this playoff anymore, we honestly don't need conference champions. And if you have multiple auto bids, you sure as hell don't need multiple. You don't need a conference championship or championship weekend. You just go by the standings. Why is that so hard? But again, we got to this place by greed, money, power, and having 16 teams or 18 teams in a conference, which is ridiculous on its face.
Yeah, can you imagine, Paul, the NFC, and Craig, the NFC East, you play the entire year, 17 games, and then you have play-in games to decide. Yeah, go by if you're going to be more like the NFL, be the NFL when it comes to the playoffs.
Well, also, Sam, wasn't the response from all the people who didn't want more than 4 teams is you're going to ruin the regular season? Well, it didn't ruin the regular season. It just made November more valuable than September, so that you could win your big games late and erase maybe a tough loss earlier. And it made it to where not every loss is a crisis for the elite teams. Ohio State is the perfect example of this, especially losing that late game to Michigan. So wouldn't automatic qualifiers ruin a big chunk of the regular season?
Yes, because it removes the urgency of winning all your games or at most of your games. That means that, because let's be honest, if there's 4 auto bids in a conference, we're going to at some point get an 8-4 team in there as the 4th team, because right now we're sitting here with a few 9-3 teams that missed in the SEC. And I'm not saying that there's going to be a lot of instances of that, but there's going to be someone saying, well, this 8-4 team is better than this 10-2 Big 12 team or whatever. And that's, to me, Ari Wasserman, who used to be my colleague at The Athletic, he's at On 3 now. He had this debate, I think, with Paul Feinbaum on the air, and it's absolutely right. Is when you stack the deck in this favor, you're essentially disregarding the results because you're just saying on its face, well, we're better than everybody else, so that's why we deserve more. And you're codifying that in the language. And to me, what happens if there is a year that the SEC is really down? Do you get to take one of those spots back and give it to someone else? Probably not. They're not going to go for that. So if the Big 12 has, and that's the other reason why I don't like this. If you're going to do it this way, I don't like the 14 team because it only allows for one at large. But what if the Big 12 has 3 10-win teams? You're going to get one of them left out? I think there's just so many flaws to this thing because, again, we refuse to take any power back or to fight for any power. Like, I'm really shocked that Brett Yormark and Jim Phillips haven't just screamed off the top of their heads about this because, and maybe it's because they're in a high position and they're more calculated and they're just going to be happy to take their 2 bids that they're going to get left with. But to me, I think this is something you got to fight for. To me, once you take this step, there's no going back and there's only going further, which is eventually cutting you out of the process entirely.
Well, and they kind of did that by allowing the Big Ten and SEC to have the power moving forward and more of the money. And, yeah, I don't know Jim Phillips because I've never met him, but we've met and interviewed and had Brett Yormark and talked to him even off to the side. This seems like maybe he's being more calculated and there's got something up his sleeve, but this doesn't seem to be the guy from the inner city streets of New York or wherever else.
Yeah, I don't know Jim at all, but I'm just saying you have nothing to lose at this point by speaking up. By speaking up and just calling it out for what it is and how unfair it is. And I guess you could they take their ball and go home? Sure. But let's be really honest. Do we really think ESPN wants a national championship with only Big Ten and SEC teams in it? I don't think they do, because I think they do realize that how much of the viewership share they will lose if you exclude all the other teams. They want it mostly with those teams, but I don't think they want it with all of those teams, because if it's only those teams and you tell 75% of the rest of the college football fan base that you don't have a chance, your team doesn't matter, then I think they know where that leads long term. It may not be immediate in terms of fall off in audience, but I think long term you would see it. And so I do think that there's some degree of they probably don't want it either. And I wonder, I don't know what the conversations are like between the conferences and the TV partners, but I would have to imagine there's some conversation along these lines too, and about how those two conferences should tread really carefully about how they do this.
Well, and some of those teams that the ESPN would leave behind or not be included are their own partners as far as in television, with TV deals with the Big 12, et cetera, the ACC, Fox with the Big 12. It doesn't make sense you'd want to hurt one of your own. I think we lost him.
Sam, you there?
Yeah.
You there, Sam? All right, he dropped.
All right, that's good. Thank you very much, Sam Conn, theathletic.com, with us on Thursdays, usually in the 3 to 4 o'clock hour. We appreciate his time. Just around the corner, we will examine the University of Houston and their schedule for 2025. We have that. We also will have Craig's Off the Radar in 30 minutes or so. Robert Allen, who's the sideline analyst for Oklahoma State, and Paul Catalina. And before that, Mickey Spagnola, the new salary cap and the Cowboys, and does that open up the door for them to actually, not a lot, but spend a little bit more money and maybe get names like Micah Parsons signed early, or will they have drama with that too and then eventually sign him? This is 365 Sports. The Baylor alumni fan engagement inside the university bubble. So I don't know if I'm supposed to use that. That's the Baylor bubble, under the umbrella of Baylor University. Doug Furch and Paul Thorpe, they travel throughout the country when the athletic teams do that, set up parties, watch parties, gatherings, pep rallies, events for the fans, the donors and alums, wherever Baylor might be. If that's something that you would like to do in the city where you are, a watch party, even though they might be playing in, let's say, Atlanta, or they're playing in L.A. or in Phoenix, but you are in Chicago or Salt Lake City or somewhere like that, Birmingham, and you like to have a group of Baylor alums get together at a sports bar or maybe somewhere at a hotel where you can sit and watch a big game. Coming up with March Madness around the corner, men's or women's basketball. Baylor alumni fan engagement, Doug Furch and Paul Thorpe, Baylor.edu.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
365 Sports, thanks to Garrett Ross, who runs the mothership. And then, of course, Emery Winter, Andrew doing what they do on an everyday basis. Andrew, I got to tell you, he's up for Rookie of the Year. Emery's already won that award. Garrett was too old to win it. He had been in the league 2 or 3 different times prior to that.
That's my window.
But we appreciate what they do.
We also brought him back as a video producer, which is like when Rick Ankiel couldn't pitch anymore and he became back as an outfielder.
Be a DH.
And so it's a bit of a different thing. So he can't win Rookie of the Year. He can do it well, but
Garrett wearing one of the most dynamic hats in all of sports. Great franchise, the Yankees. All right, now, the idea that we started, about a week or so ago, 16 teams in the Big 12, analyze each of their schedules. Craig, the University of Houston.
Yes, thank you. We're all the way to Houston now, and as we always clarify, this is not prediction time. This is merely a look at the schedule since those dropped a little over a week ago now, and just fun to kind of take a look at what teams are facing, not so much of a full-on breakdown. So we normally break this into 3 parts in terms of having a couple of bye weeks for everybody this year. There's 3 phases to a schedule. Some might have a clean 4-4-4. We've seen various examples of like 6 in a row to start the season, or 4 and then 5, and it's all kind of different. But for Houston, They will be starting off their 2025 schedule with, I think, a lot of hope, guys. I think that Houston is excited about the things that were positive from last year. Obviously, some things that you expected weren't going to be so great in year number one under Willie Fritz, but the defense was really strong. Unfortunately, you now lose that defensive coordinator. But there were some games they won that you weren't expecting them to. They had a lot more fight than I think anybody predicted they would have. So I think they roll into this season feeling pretty good about their ability to maybe take another step forward, but did finish last year at 4-8, including a 3-game losing streak to close the year where they got beat by Arizona, Baylor, and then BYU to close things out. So a couple games short of a bowl game, but they had that nearly the win over Oklahoma in week number 2, which we thought at the time was like, what's going on? And then it turns out like Oklahoma's like, that was kind of foreshadowing for them, but they played them really tough and played some other teams really tough. But here's how it's going to look for Willie Fritz in year number 2 with some assistant changes and some personnel changes as well, which I think is highlighted by Connor Wegman now at quarterback. But they will open things up on a Thursday night. So that right there in itself is unique to be playing on a weekday. And they will be at home hosting Stephen F. Austin.
Well, I mean, that's a loss.
Why would you
invite those bums to Houston?
Why would you gamble away your season facing the Lumberjacks and Colby Carthel? Why would you do that? I mean, dangerous.
It's a risk.
Yeah, well, I only highlight that because we have a Lumberjack next to us here right in the middle. But, yes, Stephen F. Austin, the opener on a Thursday night. Then they will play rival Rice in that annual game. And then they actually, in another weird, this is like the schedule we were talking about yesterday where there's actually a conference game before the non-conference is over with. But they will play Colorado in week 3 to open up Big 12 play. And we can stop there because their first bye week is in week 4. So they play SFA. They play Rice. I think you feel pretty good, although Rice, you never know. And then Colorado, all of those games right there in the city of Houston. So they will be just right there at home for the first month of the season with 3 games. And, you know, Colorado, we'll see. They'll most likely be underdogs in that game, but not a bad team. Dion coming to Texas to open things up and probably be 2-0 at that point, so maybe a little bit of excitement for the Buffs rolling in, but that's their first stretch. Those 3 games, and then it's a break already.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the who's the better transfer quarterback in that Colorado game with Connor Wegman and Caden Salter. Potentially squaring off if that's who does, in fact, win the job.
I think if it's not, then that's a story in its own, right?
Exactly.
He's either hurt or Julian Lewis is really, really good or Caden Salter's not as good as we thought. Yeah, that'll be a story if he's not the quarterback.
Yeah, so, I think that you've got a shot to be 3-0. You've got a really good, nice jump, and you really need to be at that point because you've got the 3-7-2 schedule, and that 7 in a row in the middle includes, we'll get to in a second, but that's not easy to have that 7 weeks in a row, especially when some of your conference compatriots have it broken up nice and evenly, or much more than 7 games in a row after your first bye.
Yeah, so as you mentioned there, they have a bunch of games to play in a row since you have that early bye week. So after you play Colorado to open Big 12 play, then your final non-conference game, you'll have 2 weeks to prepare for a trip to Corvallis. After being able to just kind of chill at home for the first 4 weeks, you will then go about as far as you could go outside of going to like Hawaii, I guess. I mean, maybe there's a couple maybe Oregon's a little farther. I don't know off the top of my head, but all the way to Oregon State and Corvallis to take on the Pac stalwart and the Beavers there. So then you'll play them, followed by a trip back home where you will face Texas Tech. So we get Houston and Texas Tech. All the Texas schools don't play each other for everybody, but Houston does play all of the Texas schools this year. So that is one kicker to their schedule is they will play Tech, they will play Baylor, they will play TCU. Not everybody else gets to do that, but they play Texas Tech. Then it's to Stillwater to take on Oklahoma State, back home for Arizona, and then to Tempe to take on the defending Big 12 champions, or the reigning Big 12 champions, I should probably say, there in Arizona State. And then it is back home. It's a little back and forth to play West Virginia, and then back on the road again.
Yeah, it's every other week.
It's every other week. They're going home, away, home, away, home, away. So this, 7-game stretch, right? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. 6 game. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7-game stretch right there in the middle. You were going home, away every other week. So after the home game against West Virginia, you go to Orlando to play UCF, and then you get a break. So that first month, you don't leave home. And you have 2, on paper, very winnable games, and we don't know about Colorado, but that's even at home. So maybe they're still kind of figuring things out, and you can get them, and then you get that break. But then that's that middle schedule. I mean, 7 straight, Corvallis, Houston, Stillwater, Houston, Tempe, Houston, Orlando, and then it's finally a bye week again.
You're hitting all the time zones.
Yeah, you're going all over the freaking country.
You're going to be in the West, the Mountain, the Central, and the East.
Mm-hmm. And Arizona, who has their own.
Well, yeah, it depends on the time of the year. I get mixed up.
Here's, I think if you want to hit the bowl game, you need to be at 6 coming out of this, given who the last 2 are. Who could be, probably 2 of the best 4 teams on your schedule if you throw Tech and Arizona State in there. And that's no disrespect to anybody else, but I would say right now,
we're playing the on-paper game, and Tech is as much of an on-paper contender as there is right now in the Big 12.
So Tech, Arizona State, TCU, and Baylor, you have those 4. I would say those are the 4 toughest right now on the schedule, before the season starts. So you got to get to that 6th win before you get out of that, because those last 2, I think, are going to be pretty tough.
I'll let you discuss those 2 before I say what I was going to say about Houston.
What, the final 2 on the schedule? Yeah. So after you have those 3 break, 7 break, and then you are at home on Saturday, November 22nd. And I should mention they open on a Thursday, but every other game is a Saturday. So they don't have any more of that. It's just that first opening game against SFA is a Thursday nighter. But after you come back from that break, it's so late that, you only have 2 games remaining. And it is TCU at home on November the 22nd, and then you will turn around and close the season back on the road. So their entire schedule is home and away every other week, the entire way through.
I wonder if that can be I wonder if that's somehow wear and tear, because you never get to settle in. Although you don't want to have to play 2 road games in a row depending on the time, or like where, if it's in Arizona, then you're in Orlando. But I wonder if every other week you can get into a rhythm, or if that can kind of wear you out.
I don't know, but you don't get to settle in really at all. I mean, unless you count having that bye week, maybe following – let's see. So after so you play Colorado at home and then a bye week, so you don't have to go anywhere for that. You play UCF on the road and then you come back and you have that. So you can't. So you have like that Colorado part of the schedule where you'll be at home for a good chunk, but then after that, it's back and forth the entire way. 6 home games, 6 road games. So there's no extra home game there either. I mean, it's completely as down the middle as you can possibly freaking get this schedule, which is kind of unique to see. But TCU and then at Baylor to close out the season on November the 29th. So that's what their schedule looks like. And I don't know how often. Maybe it happens quite often, but it doesn't feel like we see such a balanced type of schedule like that.
With the colors the graphic that Garrett put out. They're playing all 3 Texas teams in their conference.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's got to be good, and you wonder if that could ever happen, but apparently not with the algorithm. Plus, they're playing a team at home in SFA that's just, 2.5-3 hours up the road in Nacogdoches.
Yeah, and so, you look at last year and compare it to this year. They'll play Arizona again. They'll play Baylor again, but there's no BYU on the schedule. There is no Kansas State on the schedule. There is no Kansas on the schedule. No Utah on the schedule. No Iowa State on the schedule. No Cincy on the schedule. So it's a big shakeup from the teams they played last year. And you could look at that and go like, hey, that's great we don't play Iowa State, right? That's great we don't play Kansas State. It might be pretty good you don't play Utah for all we know at this point. Probably good you don't play BYU. So you do kind of avoid some of those teams you think might be pretty good, but you are getting Arizona State as far as on paper. You're getting Tech on paper, and then we'll see about a lot of the rest. Like, I expect TCU will be good. At worst, they'll be solid. At worst, they'll still be favored over you at that point, I would think. But the rest of them, I mean, there's a lot of question marks. Like, is Oklahoma State vastly better? Is West Virginia vastly better or just as good or a little bit better than they were last year with Rich Rod? Arizona, I mean, there's some winnable games on this schedule for the Cougs, but, yeah, a lot of it will determine kind of that non-conference. Do they get bit by an Oregon State? Are they able to go 3-0? Are they able to maybe upset Colorado early and get a nice start to then only have to win it? Like, I don't know, but that'll be the story that we get to when that time comes. But, yeah, it's a different schedule in terms of a lot of the opponents, but you are playing all the Texas teams, which is great, and you are bouncing around a lot, which I'm not sure how Willie Fritz feels about that. We can ask him when the time comes. But looking at this schedule, I mean, and just in general, I can see a path to 6 wins.
To me, that game at Oregon State kind of set the tone. They could jump up and bite you. There have been times they're really good. Not sure how they're being affected by the changes with the conferences, but that's a little dicey in Corvallis.
I don't think you assume that they're going to be going bowling, but there is a pathway where you could see if it falls the right way, especially early on. And as you mentioned, the trip to Corvallis. But that first month, SFA, Rice, you have to win both of those games. You have to win the Bayou Bucket. And then we'll see once you get into, CU and Oregon State. But there's Houston's schedule. I think there's a lot of fun there to be had, some cool road trips. I mean, if you're a Houston fan and you haven't gone up to Stillwater, that's a great atmosphere, although I don't know at that point in the season of what that atmosphere will be like. I don't know how hard the paddles are going to be banging against the wall, depending on where Mike Gundy and company find themselves, but that's a great place when it's rocking. Like, that's a fun venue. Corvallis should be a really cool experience. I think there's probably a lot of fans that will want to go to that game just because it's pretty unique. And then, go out to Orlando if you want to. Go out to Tempe. There's some fun trips if you're a Houston fan, and some new trips as well. So I like the schedule. I think it's manageable. I think you avoid some of the teams that you assume are going to be really good, but you get your cracks at a couple of the teams that
they don't play anybody in the Midwestern part of the Big 12, do they? K-State, Kansas,
they don't play any of those teams.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah. I mean, they play pretty much a couple of the Western schools in Arizona State, but they don't play BYU. They don't play Utah. They're pretty much a little bit of west, but a lot of moving east.
That game, I don't know if this makes a difference. The game when they play Arizona State, of course, Mountains time never changes in Arizona. But it will the week after they're in Tempe. So that's not like much of a change at all as far as the time zone. They leave Texas once. And really, Stillwater's not much of a travel. They don't really leave much of anybody except one time the first month and a half of the season.
And that is something that is definitely
actually, until October 25th in Tempe, they have no road trip other than Oregon State. Yes, on the road against Rice. Yes, on the road against Stillwater. But they really don't have much travel, although Corvallis is a long trip.
Oh, yeah, and they highlighted that 1,800 miles.
That's how far it is?
Houston to Corvallis, 1,800 miles.
It's about how far it is from here to Tampa.
Yeah. So that'll be about, it'll be a little bit less Houston to Orlando.
Yeah.
But yeah, Houston to Corvallis. And that should be fun. You can go up there and have some granola. I don't know.
What? Is that what they're known for?
Well, I mean, it's Oregon.
I think they're a little bit different than I don't know the differentiations.
Corvallis, I mean, somebody's going to have to correct me.
I think it's more rural.
It is.
I think definitely more rural.
How close
Corvallis,
is it?
Stillwater, are they all kind of the same type city?
I mean, I think there's more similar than like thinking of Seattle.
How close is it to Bend, where the last remaining Blockbuster is?
I don't know off the top of my head. But, it is definitely more of that's part of the reason why people feel like they would fit in the Big 12 is the size, but also kind of you're not the big team, but you're a respectable team, and you can hold your own, but you're also kind of out in the
Corvallis and Pullman fit that vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, you always thought of those two differently than you do Washington and Oregon.
Look, here's the thing. If they were closer to anything, the Big 12 might have just gone ahead and grabbed them because they're no different than K-State or or Oklahoma or Tech.
I just don't think that you had the votes, the TV money, none of that. And I think there comes a point, too, where then you went and you added a bunch of other schools, and you added 8 schools, and you're like, do we need 9 and 10 right now, or are we going to sit and wait and see how this plays out? And I think they chose the let's play it out route. And, that was kind of mind-boggling to me. It was like a week after they added the 4 Pac-12 schools, it's like Oregon State and Washington State are next, like, well, they would have just done it last week. Like, they just did that. So if they could do that, you would think they would have done it at that time, and who knows. But there are some notes, and this is courtesy of Houston. So we're talking about this, and some of this I had marked down as well, but I came across an article by them. So a couple of the highlights from this that I found of interest. We talked about the home and away every single week of the season. First time in 80 seasons of football it's ever happened for Houston, where they've gone home and away, back and forth. No first-time teams on the schedule. So they've played everybody at least once before, but they have not played SFA since 1948.
They dodged us.
Yes, that's clearly what happened. They have not played Oregon State since 1970. They have not played Colorado since 1971. And they have not played Arizona State since 1990.
Let me tell you something. That 71 Colorado was third in the country.
So those are the last times they played some of those teams. So this will be the first time in a long time. I mean, 30-plus years for at least 4 of these opponents, and much more than 30 years when you're talking about having not played SFA since 1948, which that seems kind of crazy that would have been that long.
Yeah, because that's a long break. I'll talk to the alums and boosters about that. Really, that would make sense. That's a game to go play, maybe get a pretty decent check. Houston's not going to have 75,000. We get that, but that just makes sense to play against Houston when you're right there. Just drive down, 69, Highway 69 or 59 to Houston.
Yeah, and then just a couple more. They play in all 4 time zones, as you guys mentioned. That's happened before, but it's been a while since that's happened, a few years since that happened. But they will hit all 4 of the major time zones. And there's more about, like, the last time they played Texas Tech, or the fact that will be the 47th meet. There's things like that if you want to get deeper into it, but I think we've hit most of the highlights and kind of the most interesting points of the schedule. And it's something that they can, I think, handle, but there's a lot of questions. We don't know quite who they are also. So
they got to win that game. They don't only have to. They win a game against Oregon State. The year that they played what did you say? Houston in 1971. Colorado went 10-2 that year. Their only losses were number 1 against number 2 in Nebraska and Oklahoma. They beat number 9 LSU and 6th-ranked Ohio State. That's how good they were, and that's how unbelievable the Big 8 was that year. Number 1, number 2, and also number 3. So Oregon State and Corvallis. I think, Paul, you said granola. Somebody said you could eat beaver up there too, right?
Oh, I mean, you can do that in a lot of places, but, I mean, sure, yeah.
When we come back around the corner, Paul Catalina, off the radar. Not yet. Couple of notes to get to. Off the radar tonight was a huge hockey night. I'm sure Craig will be talking about that and so much more. This is 365 Sports Tonight. I was at Don Humidor and Coffee Beans. It was on Wednesday. Went in. Cheyenne wasn't there. Her where she lives, she had a pipe break because remember the weather started coming in, and if you didn't have that water dripping a little bit in the faucet, so unfortunately where she lived that was a problem. But I had a chance to visit quite a bit with Joshua. I walked in. I said I need a bag of Vitadreams. That's the gummy that I take. One, and sometimes it just depends on what's on my mind that night. But one gummy allows you to kind of just relax. And like last night, I took a couple of them. And next thing you know, it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. Doesn't knock you out. Doesn't drug you. CBD product. It just kind of allows you to get some of the stuff off your mind and your mind's at ease. I do that almost every night. Vitadreams. The 48-foot walk-in humidor. Smoking cigars. I haven't done that in a long time. I haven't played much golf of late. It's too damn cold. But when I do have cigars, I get them from Don Humidor and Coffee Beans, a 48-foot walk-in humidor. And if you have severe chronic pain, whether it's arthritis or something even worse, maybe even something like battling the pains of cancer or recovery, THD product. It's called For Bad Days. It works because my sister-in-law has a bad hip, bad back, and she takes some of that on occasion too. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwood Shopping Center. Tell them I sent you. in between Valley Mills and also Richland Drive in Waco.
Alan Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Alan Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Are we here? Okay, I'm sorry. 365 Sports. It's a Thursday afternoon around the corner. Craig and Off the Radar. And also Mickey Spagnola will join us at 5:25. The NFL with more money for everybody. And how will that affect the Cowboys and some of their decisions, if at all, or maybe more than we think? And then Paul's top 5 as well. So you know about the opt-in, the House settlement, whenever that becomes official, could happen by the end of April. Maybe that still drags on. But you've heard of school. Mac Rhodes at Baylor. Many of the ADs have said they're going to opt in, which is about a $20 million commitment to pay your student athletes with revenue sharing. Meanwhile, some schools who are right there on the edge, North Dakota, will not. And this is from our good friend, we've had him on before, and Sam Hurd, will not opt in to the House settlement. And then he put together a list, and I have this list. I printed the list. He goes, seemed like all the Dakota schools are leaning of not opting in during the first year for the FCS when it comes to this new deal. But Southern Illinois, Youngstown State, Montana State, Sacramento State, they're all in on everything. They're trying to move up the ladder into FBS or whatever it's going to be. Montana State, not so sure. But North Dakota, he was saying that none of the Dakota schools, North Dakota State, South, or South Dakota State, appear to be opting in the first year. That's a big chunk for those schools because they're not getting the kind of money that the others that are FBS schools are getting.
And the athletic director at
you know him
at North Dakota is Bill Chates. He was here when I first started working here. I know him really well. He's a fellow member of Red Sox Nation, so we bonded over that. And Bill makes a good point here that they have the opt-in date. He said, here's the odd part. The NCAA is requiring that we declare whether we plan to opt in by March 1st, while the lawsuit settlement will not occur until April 7th. Now, if you're Georgia, you're opting in. Like, there's nothing that's going to happen on April 7th or between then and April 7th that's going to change that. But considering that the FCS schools don't really know where they fit in all this exactly financially, for them, they need to know. They really need to know what it is. So I think they need to see it in practice. So I don't blame them. Like, they'll eventually figure something out. It's not going to be that. They're going to the North Dakota schools. Those schools will eventually make some sort of commitment to it, because otherwise you're not going to have any athletes at all. But I get, like, hey, well, we're not going to opt in this year, but we'll opt in when we know what it's going to be. I think that's a pretty, measured response.
Am I the only one, and sometimes I don't look at all this stuff the way it should be, but I think it sucks that North Dakota State or South Dakota or whoever have to pay the same amount in this settlement that someone like Ohio State and Florida have to pay.
I think it's ridiculous that any of the smaller schools were on the hook for any kind of the same thing. Yeah.
But they're all under the same umbrella.
Yeah.
So it's a class action lawsuit, basically, right?
This lawsuit did not happen because of North Dakota.
No.
It did not happen because of the FCS schools of the world. Now, would they have loved to be that big to be able to be part of that? I'm sure they would have at one point. But there was nobody in the 90s that was going to school at North Dakota or Youngstown State that thought that was going to be a path to a lot of attention. They know it's like, when you step on campus, it's not very big compared to the other ones. So that's not, you don't turn on the television and see North Dakota like you do Notre Dame every week. So there's a stark difference in it. Pretty impressive bit of legal wrangling that any of those smaller schools and smaller entities are on the hook as much as the big dogs are.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. And so he was at Baylor, you said, at one point? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and now running University of North Dakota.
Hey, our friend Nick Jose, who hooked us up with Jamie Pollard, he and Bill Chaves, they were close. They were tight, yeah. So
please, if you haven't, and if you don't mind, click the like and subscribe button. We'd appreciate that. Sometimes I'll see whether it's 85 or 150 or 400 that are in the chat, and yet I look at the like button and it's got like 17. Now, is that just because my computer doesn't calculate it as it changes, or what? I don't know.
No, I think you probably don't hit refresh, but I think that's also, there's a misconception that people think that doesn't matter, and it absolutely does. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we're not going to beg for it, but we probably do need to mention it more often and make it more of just an in-passing thing, because it does help as far as just views and algorithm and things like that. So just doing that, especially if you're every day, just do that right off the top.
Yeah, every time you do it, an angel gets its wings.
Well, for example, I don't know if there's been 150, 500, or even 60, but the like button, I just liked it, then I refreshed, it's 30. I don't, and I know that we have some of you in the chat that kind of bang that drum for us a little bit.
We appreciate it.
That.
Yeah, so
yes.
We really
we need you to do that. So yeah, we definitely appreciate that, and it does matter. I've had plenty of people on this show. Like, no, it doesn't. No, it does. I'm telling you, it does. So, yeah, if you would do that just every day, just bink, we'd really appreciate it.
When we have Mickey on, we also have the news. Well, Craig's going to do off the radar, so I'm not going to say that yet. But we have some news that we'll talk about with Mickey about the roster personnel. Now, there's been this trend, and it's fine. Dion, among others that were head coaches at HBCUs, Eddie George, of course, and now Deshaun Jackson, who's at Delaware State, former Eagles wide receiver. Boy, he was lightning fast. He's hired Clinton Portis, who was a hell of a running back with Denver and Washington. Joe Gibbs acquired him, I think, in a trade when he came to Washington the second time.
For Champ
Bailey. They had a really good team that one year. He now is the running backs coach.
Or was
at
it the
Delaware
other way
State.
around? Was it Champ Bailey for Clinton Portis?
No, Portis for Champ Bailey.
Yeah.
Which,
Portis for Champ
I don't know.
Bailey.
Yeah,
in the end.
Bailey went to Denver.
Okay. But Portis was he was on that 0-1 Miami team and wasn't the starter. Just how good they were.
Was McGahee?
Yeah, it was McGahee. Yeah. I think Najee Davenport too was on that as well.
That's a banger, right?
He got kind of run out of the NFL because he got in a domestic dispute and took a dump in his girlfriend's closet.
That'll do it. I mean, I don't.
It's interesting. These former NFL players jumping into the HBCUs and trying to help bring some attention and some light to these programs.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the HBCU aspect that's cool. I also think just in general, like it's not shocking to see former players. Like Dan Campbell's probably one of the most high-profile coaches in the NFL right now, and he's a former player. And, I mean, there's other guys that are as well. It is cool to see that, though, the guys that stick around and then go from player to coach. But there is obviously more of a concentration with big-name athletes that are recognizable. That you're like, wow, Clinton Portis and Deshaun Jackson, and I know there's various others that you go and you say, oh, wow, there's kind of something bubbling up here, and particularly, at the HBCU level. So I think Dion deserves a lot of credit for helping that become an area that had more of a light shined on it, not only for yourself as an opportunity as a coach, but for those programs as well to give back and to just kind of raise the profile and use your star status to be able to do that. I mean, Jackson State got how many millions of dollars of press from Dion's couple years there? I mean, they won't have that for the next 30 years, maybe 50 years, that amount of attention that they got. So, the more the merrier. I'm interested to see how these guys do. And are we talking about a Deshaun Jackson-led, Ohio State team or something in 5, 6, 7 years? I don't know. I don't know where it takes a lot of these guys, but these are guys that are like in my wheelhouse, about the same ages, and definitely watched them when I was in my prime when they were in theirs, right? And so to see them all becoming coaches is pretty cool.
Michael Vick.
And all in some cases, Michael Vick. That's who I was trying to think of a second ago, and I didn't want to say the wrong person. But Michael Vick, and there's various others. But that's pretty cool, and they won't have a hard time trying to convince you that they've got the experience. I mean, multiple NFL players who played for way more than a cup of coffee, made Pro Bowls, won big games, had big performances. Deshaun Jackson can teach you to not to do stupid things, maybe, and then just get in the end zone. Just get in the end zone. But no, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. And I was always a Clinton Portis fan. He was there for what felt like a little while, like the only star on Washington's roster. Like I call them like action figure guys, because there's guys that sell jerseys, and a lot of guys can do that. But you have to be like a big star to be a video game cover guy. To be one of those types of guys, you have to be on kind of a different level. Portis wasn't necessarily, I don't think, a video game cover guy, but he was an action figure guy. Like, he was a star for Denver. He was probably the biggest star on Washington's roster, like I said, there for a little while. And so, that's awesome. Good to see. And I don't know how Portis, as much as he said about the Commanders, but Santana Moss is still hanging around, and he does like their post game stuff, along with is it Brian Mitchell that also does
Brian
it? I think
Mitchell does a radio show in Washington.
Well, he does, but there's a special like on the field post game they do, and Santana Moss is a part of that. And I want to say the other one is. Is it Brian Mitchell? I think it might be. But anyways.
He's been a part of their broadcast. And I tell you what, I'll always remember Santana Moss. First of all,
I love Santana Moss.
Remember
man. Paul's looking at me like I just insulted his wife.
Would you say something about Bill Self?
No, Santana Moss.
No, I want to bring up Santana Moss and the Cowboys and was it Mark Brunell?
It's not even that.
Remember those? Remember the two
threes?
Miami.
He absolutely kicked the shit out of us. I mean, just badly. And then I was standing as they were winning. As they were winning, after they won the game and they're celebrating, we're walking, trying to navigate the way out. I'm in the worst mood, and I can hear his post-game interview where he's just like, big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. And I was just like, shut up! They missed the field goal. Otherwise, we win. Yeah. But he dominated us in that game. Dominated us. God, he caught him so much.
He caught 2 deep bombs. Garrett, you remember back then against Dallas at Texas Stadium? I think it didn't make any sense, and they came back and won. But Portis was a bad dude, no question, and now he's a part of that staff at Delaware State.
Oh,
all right.
Then the next year, I had to watch. The next 2 years, I had to watch a Clinton Portis and all those guys run right through them. Yeah, any of those guys. But, Santana Moss, Mark Brunell.
He'd be another one that I'd say was like a face of the franchise type of guy. He was not a video game or he was borderline action figure type of guy, I guess. Moss was he's a pretty big star, I mean, for Washington. So, they they had their fair share of the U guys there in the early 2000s, which was a good thing because they were great players.
I wonder how much Washington got, and I know we have to take a break, what he got when they traded him from Denver. Got him from Denver.
Well, they gave Champ Bailey up, so
yeah,
it was a pretty high-profile thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at that trade. I can't find it right now. But, yeah, that he was early. He was young, too, a young running back, a buck, had nearly 10,000 yards rushing in his career.
Bailey and a second-round pick for Portis. That's what it was.
That's what okay. That's two bangers going one way and the other. All right, when we come back, Craig Smoak and Off the Radar. Interesting night in sports, but a lot going on, too. And this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to have a pizza tonight. Certain times I just want to have that crunch of the crust, thin crust, whatever it might be. Marco's Pizza, go online, order it. I don't usually go online and order, but you can and pick and choose what you want. And they've got different specials, different code words, whatever. You could do that, go pick it up, or they'll deliver it to you. Or, like I said, just call them on the phone and drive by and pick up what you want. I have always liked thin crust. I've always liked thin crust that's cooked, not burnt, but crispy. It's just the way I am, and I'm going to do that tonight. I've already made up my mind. That's what I'm having for dinner tonight. Marco's Pizza, fastest-growing pizza brand in America. I haven't made up my mind if it's going to be the all-meat or if it's just going to be simple with like pepperoni and maybe Italian sauces, because the Italian sauces they put on there, it's got a little kick to it. So Bob Mock, somebody we know, has been a sponsor of this show from pretty much day one. Very involved in a lot of what we do outside of even this show with our high school coverage and much more. 5 locations in the Waco area: Belmead, China Spring, Hewitt, Robinson, and also Woodway. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube.
And welcome back to the show. And time for a little off the radar, I guess, boys. Are you ready for that?
This is my bad. I'm doing all new breaks. I forgot to make one for off the radar today.
What, do you just ignore him?
No. I mean, I just, it's a lot. It's a lot, man.
Oh, you are. You are a lot. But, okay, Craig?
Yep. So, hi. Here we are off the radar and look at some stories, as the title suggests, that are off our radar a little bit, although we will talk Cowboys here in just a little while with Mickey Spagnola. There is the big story of the day to talk about when it comes to the Cowboys. So y'all were at the Super Bowl a couple of weeks ago, and I was perusing around on Twitter one of those days and came across the fact that there was a couple Cowboys that were making their way around Radio Row. And sure enough, saw a picture, and it was Bob Stern from The Ticket. I think it was him that posted it, but regardless, they were interviewing Zach Martin of the Cowboys, longtime offensive lineman, and also kicker Brandon Aubrey. We're making their rounds, I forget for whatever brand. Did you guys get a chance to talk to them?
No.
Okay. We had Darren Woodson, and that was it.
And Moose.
But they were making their way around and promoting something or other. But anyways, part of their conversation I was able to catch, and it was the question about the future of Zach Martin. They straight up asked him, like, hey, man, you've been playing for a long time. You've made a lot of money. Like, there's obviously, kind of where are you at in your career? It seems like you're at a point where age, health, all of those things start to come into play, and you got a coaching change. Just, where are you now at 34 years of age and having battled through an ankle injury that ended your season and all of that? And at the time, he sounded like he was leaning towards retirement, if you ask me. Like, if I had to guess, I would say he's probably leaning towards retirement because it just sounded like, first of all, he has no need for money. Like, he's made millions and millions and millions of dollars. So he said he was set there. Family life, like, wants to embrace that a little bit more. And so he was undecided, but definitely let it be known that there would be a decision coming soon. Well, we've found that decision out now, and a little less than 2 weeks later, 34-year-old Cowboys guard Zach Martin is retiring. According to NFL Network, he would have been a free agent next month, and that was also what they had discussed with him was, like, what are the conversations like? Are y'all having conversations? And it just sounded like there very much wasn't really anything substantial that was ongoing, which also kind of led you to believe, well, maybe retirement's the route that he will go. So it is the route that he goes. He was a first-round pick back in the 2014 draft. Lifelong Cowboy, seven-time first-team All-Pro, 2010's All-Decade team member, and a guy who will be eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame if that's what his future holds. In 2030, as you can now start the clock of the time that it takes. So 2030 would be the class now that the clock begins ticking for him. So there you have it, a decision that I don't think comes as a surprise, but a decision that needed to be made just for the Cowboys to know what they're dealing with moving forward. And they will be dealing with life without Zach Martin officially moving forward.
It's a bummer, but if it's time for him, it's time. And he's been banged up the last couple of years, especially last season. He's going to be in the Ring of Honor. He falls, unfortunately, into the category of DeMarcus Ware and Tyron Smith, and now him. I'm sure, and Jason Witten. Those four are all going to be Ring of Honor guys, but they never got the Cowboy Super Bowl. And DeMarcus Ware is going to be the only one who ever gets a Super Bowl, and that with the Broncos in his last couple years. So it's just absolutely painful to see one of the elite offensive linemen in NFL history, and he will be a Hall of Famer because he is a multi-time All-Pro.
All right, 2011, Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick in 13, and Zach Martin in 14, all three. Frederick eventually had that.
Frederick, I bet you Frederick would have been a Hall of Famer if not for.
Well, he would have been in the mix.
For the,
that's a hellacious way to build a team right there.
Yeah.
Well, I remember we all celebrated it or talked about how it wasn't the funnest draft because you were like spending all of these first-round picks on offensive linemen.
Yeah.
But then you looked up and you're like, damn, they're going to have an O-line set for like 5 to 10 years. And they had it there for a little while, but that window eventually just Father Time started to threw a rock through the window basically, and then it just all started to pain by pain kind of fall apart to where we are now, where it's it's no longer the unit in any way, shape, or form that it was.
They had a nice run in the 2010 decade when it comes to number 1 picks.
Yep,
Except
so
for,
Zach Martin.
Except for Taco.
So Zach Martin, 9-time Pro Bowler, retiring after 11 seasons in the NFL. Was that just you had to throw the taco dig in there? that was just the outlier.
That was the
outlier.
Des Bryant, Tyron Smith, Morris Claiborne.
He was good enough.
Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, Byron Jones, who turned out to be a good NFL player, Ezekiel Elliott, Leighton Vander Esch was the neck issue, and then Taco Charlton, and then Vander Esch. That wrecked that decade. That was the part. The last two, they didn't have a first pick in 19. That's a pretty good run during the decade. You could set yourself up, and they were good with most of those guys, and then eventually not. They've done well with their first-round picks, man.
They've actually drafted. I mean, that's why Will McClay gets paid the big bucks, right? In part because he's pretty good about the talent levels remaining pretty high. I mean, he's a guy who definitely has an eye for it, and so he'll have to go find some more guys.
But that's the thing. They draft pretty well. I mean, they really do. They draft pretty well, but then they don't, like, when they run into a situation where, like, hey, they need a second wide receiver, or they don't, they wait 2 years until they're like, oh, we really do.
CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons, Tyler Smith, who's still to be determined. But those three, that's really good.
They've had their fair share of their.
Tyler Guyton is more to be determined than Tyler Smith. Tyler Smith's pretty good.
And Mozzie Smith, of course, is
bust.
Cold. Yeah,
they've had their fair share of action figure guys, fair to say. But yeah, and probably not enough of the whole package that's been able to put them over the top. But there you go, Zach Martin retiring, and y'all will have more on that with Mickey, I would imagine. Coming up here in just a little while. Tonight, big game in hockey. The Four Nations face-off championship game, the rematch, Team USA versus Team Canada. Team USA won the first matchup this past weekend. You all are aware of that. The only way you're not is if you've watched like nothing that's shown sports over the last few days, because if you've seen any hint of ESPN, they're paying more attention to hockey in the last 5 days. Garrett, would that be fair to say?
Absolutely.
Than they have in like 5 years. I mean,
without a doubt.
It feels that way. And so there's been a lot of push and promotion, and this thing's now like a must-see type of an event, I think, if you're patriotic or you're a hockey fan, certainly. USA and Canada, round 2, but this one for the championship. So can the USA get it done again after their 3-1 win? We'll see, but they do have home ice in their favor now, although I'm sure there will be plenty of Canadians in attendance. But this game in Boston tonight, starting at 7 o'clock Central Time, it will be on ESPN, but also their streaming, so ESPN Plus, that as well. And Fubo, I also saw, shows it for free as well. If that's maybe what you watch, I don't know, but it's also available via Fubo. But yeah, the main broadcast there on ESPN. So do you guys have any level of anticipation for this?
I'm excited about it. It's kind of like a little mini Olympics right in the middle of a non-Olympic year.
Yeah.
I will watch it. I have an alarm in my phone because I thought it was 8 Central. I'm glad you said it. But I just think that after all the emotions and the drama and all that, the first time the United States wins, and I mean, they enjoyed it, and you should always enjoy winning. I have a bad feeling tonight.
I predicted last week that they were going to have, or was it earlier this week?
Earlier this week.
I was like, it would be the very almost kind of brash, cocky American thing to do would be to win that game and act like it's the championship, then just turn around and lose to them for the actual championship. So we know there's political tension in the air. That was evident with the first matchup as well. So whichever country wins tonight, you can be sure you will hear about it from a politician from either Canada or the United States, and certainly the fans from both countries will be I'm sure extremely active tonight on social media with the back and forth. We talked about USA's steady rise as a hockey country. To go and win this event would be a pretty big accomplishment and big step forward. But you've also got to beat Canada twice, so that's easier said than done. But that is tonight at 7 o'clock. And did you have predictions on that graphic that you showed?
It wasn't predictions. It was just talking about ESPN's going all in.
They've gone all in on it, and some of the predictions I've seen are kind of leaning Team USA. Garrett, have you seen the same thing?
I mean, there's a good shot that USA can win. They just have to play really disciplined. I think it's a split pretty much about the middle right now when you look at the predictions coming out.
I thought it was like a 0.5, half a goal.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I think if you're the U.S. team, though, you're definitely going to have to get some offensive production from Austin Matthews and Jake Hughes because neither one of them have really scored a point in this game. Austin Matthews has been kind of disappointing from his bread and butter is his shot, and it hasn't been able to go. So you're definitely going to have to need those guys to step up, and you can't let Canada consistently get into power play situations because if you have McJesus and McDavid, or McJesus and McKinnon.
Is there really a
Sidney
guy named
Crosby,
McJesus?
Well, it's McDavid. They call him McJesus because he's so good.
Okay.
But, like, no, if that power play gets rolling, it's going to be brutal. You mentioned having the game on U.S. territory. I'm going to be interested to see the fans interacting with Brad Marchand being a guy that plays in Boston every night but playing on the Canadian team. So that's something to keep an eye on, too. But if I had to pick, I think Canada wins, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it. That's why I talked about it the other day. It's just like almost all that celebration for runner-up, that's why it was very cool, and we needed to celebrate it and have fun with it, but it was almost like there's still more games to be played, and last time we saw Team USA, they got beat. So they need to rebound, and this appears to be a pretty hot ticket. I mean, first of all, if you're Team Canada, like of all the places you probably wouldn't want to play, it's Boston. As far as like the verbal abuse and just the shenanigans, that's definitely a Team USA crowd, you would think. But again, I'm sure there will be
syrup in Vermont, Canada.
I mean, I'm sure there will be.
I don't need you.
I'm sure there will be plenty of Canadian representation. But yeah, you probably are thinking like, should I wear my jersey or am I going to have a problem? I don't know. But the lowest price ticket via Vivid Seats that I just saw is $693. So that is in balcony level, row 10, and there's a few tickets available there. But everything else is $700 or more, so I think it's going to be a really cool scene later on tonight. And I am looking forward to seeing that. The Four Nations face off 7 Central on ESPN from TD Garden in Boston, Mass.
It's Dunkin' Donuts versus Tim Hortons.
Yeah. It's maybe that's part of the wager between the two sides is a little exchange of that. But yeah, very much so. So that's something unique and fun that we don't always necessarily get. And safe to say, well, I guess we can see because this might turn out like the Super Bowl or the national championship game and somebody wins like 5-0. But I will be very interested to see the ratings for this, especially if it's a close game.
They had a rating of a really, really good college football game, didn't they, the first time?
Yeah, they had a really good number. So I'm definitely interested to see what they can do with all of this buildup that did not have in the first matchup. All the buildups come from the U.S. winning that game. But if you're the NHL, you've got to be over the moon about how successful this pivot from an all-star traditional type game or a skills thing or whatever gimmicky thing you want to try. They say, let's do this, and it's pretty awesome. And I just wonder in the future what this looks like. Do they attempt to expand it? Because a lot was made about Russia not being involved for political reasons as much as anything. But who else could you possibly add in? Do you add more teams to it, or do you like rotate? I don't know, but they've got something to play with that's definitely working. So
right.
It's better than what they were doing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
No question. This is like you hit the lottery here. Is it Finland, United States, Canada, and who?
Norway.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you could add Russia. I mean, I don't know as far as number of NHL players by country. I could probably look that up if like Czechia or somewhere like that has enough representation to be able to do that. Okay, I got it here actually. What a nice little addition. I planned this entirely. All right, so Canada's got the most active players in the NHL, 291. U.S. chomping at their heels. They have by far the next biggest chunk, 28.7%. It's over 200 players. Sweden, then Russia, and they have 46 active NHLers, so they would definitely be involved if you want to clear the political. And look at me, man. Finland and the Czech Republic. What did I say?
Let's go. Yeah.
And I actually pronounced it properly. I don't know if I pronounced it properly, but I called it Czechia, and that is what it's actually known as, not just the Czech Republic. But then you get into, I don't think you could do anybody else. You could add those two, and even then, they've got 22 players.
Yeah, it'd be a tight.
That'd be tight fit. Yeah, so you could really only Russia would be the only one that would make sense to add that has like the number of guys. They have 46 active NHL players.
I wonder how many players there are from South America.
0.
I would think probably 0. Yeah.
There's one from Slovenia, one from Australia, one from the Netherlands, one from Australia. Austria, one from Australia.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
so you're looking at maybe
like there's no dude from Brazil.
no, they play soccer most of the time or basketball, I guess.
And hey, Russia, you could be part of this thing. Just stop being dicks.
Well, they are probably going to be a part of it, and I guess we'll see if Czechia is a part of it as well or not. And they stick with the four that they have, but regardless, they are on a nice little run here with promotion for the NHL that's unlike anything they've seen in quite a long while. Just a couple more things here. Happy baseball season to those who celebrate. It officially began today. Spring training ball is underway as the Dodgers are taking on the Chicago Cubs right at this very moment, and that is the start of spring training officially. It's a bit of a blowout right now as the Cubs are up 12-4, but we did get to see Yoshinobu Yamamoto for the Dodgers. He started, had a fair little outing. An inning and 2/3, gave up 3 hits, struck out 2, no walks, no runs. So fun to see him right out of the gates. And, so you got a little baseball going on, and you're going to get more baseball coming your way. So you'll have what is the Cactus League Open that we're talking about right here with the Dodgers and Cubs. And then tomorrow it will be the official Grapefruit Open, which is out in Florida, obviously, and that will be the Rays and the Yankees out in Tampa. So that will kickstart the Florida side of things, and then it's just all baseball from here on out, boys. I mean, it's underway now. So your level of excitement.
I'm excited. Like the Red Sox have made me generally more excited than they have in the last 4 years of treading water.
Well, so long as Devers and Bregman don't fight over third base.
I think that's really kind of a no. I think it's getting like ESPN is trying to hey, this is something.
Right, yeah.
And Devers is just saying, look, third base is mine until somebody tells you not.
Yeah.
And then Alex Bregman's like, I don't give a crap. I'll play wherever they tell me to.
Yeah.
He's
Did
going to play.
you know that Alex Bregman was actually rated as a better second baseman than Altuve?
Yeah, I mean, he's a fantastic.
Altuve is now a left fielder. So.
Yeah, so he's.
Or they're experimenting with him in left field.
Yes,
but
yes.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work out.
Probably not.
Did you mention the Victor from San Antonio?
I'm not done.
Oh, okay. I thought you were.
Yeah, no, I'm excited.
Right.
Look, Garrett Crochet, Walker Buehler with the Red Sox in the rotation. Plenty excited about it. So I actually think the Rangers should see a nice little uptick. They've got a young pitching staff.
Yeah.
And they've got Eovaldi and DeGrom at the top. As long as DeGrom can stay healthy, I mean, it should be fun.
I was not expecting Eovaldi necessarily to come back, but he did, and I'm glad. And it makes sense because he does love Texas. He's a Texas boy and all that. But, yeah, is DeGrom healthy? That's like the news. He's like the Cam Rising of the Texas Rangers.
Yeah.
Is he healthy or is he not? But, yeah, baseball's underway out in Arizona. Florida will join the party tomorrow. And so everybody will be underway with full-on spring training baseball. So we've hit hockey. We've hit Major League Baseball, also hit a little NFL. Why don't we make it a grand slam here with pro sports updates, as out in the NBA, Victor Wembanyama of the San Antonio Spurs is going to miss the remainder of the year. A deep vein thrombosis in his right shoulder, according to Shams Charania. So one of the most, polarizing players and most interesting young players in the league, and certainly one of the more unique players we've seen in the NBA in recent years. He is now going to miss the rest of the season. So, deep vein thrombosis is the culprit here, and that sucks for the Spurs, man.
Well, I was finally getting excited again. They got De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
I was finally getting excited. And then
I'm going to tell you something. I know this is a bad end. This is something, but I was like, how are they going to shut somebody down to get back in the lottery for one more, to build on this team they have, because they're right on the edge of being in the playoffs?
Yeah, well, I don't think they're. Here's the thing.
They surely didn't want to.
It's too late for them to suck this bad, and now they have De'Aaron Fox. So yeah, it's such a bummer. He's so fun to watch. I've never there's no one on earth who is built like him, who moves like him.
It's so weird to watch, man. It really is.
Even Dirk was the first 7-foot real shooter. Yeah, maybe Arvydas Sabonis was, but Arvydas Sabonis was slow.
No, he was a thick dude.
Yeah, he was thick. Dirk was leaner, obviously, but I would never call Dirk watching him run wasn't holy cow, it's graceful.
He was clunky.
Yeah, he was
his
clunky.
Own way. Yeah, he's a big dude.
You watch Wembanyama, and it's just It's like watching a giraffe play basketball gracefully.
You know what I like about him? He gets posterized, and he does the posterizing. Because he's not afraid to go protect the rim, so that's going to happen. Yeah. He's not just some dangly, flower.
He's a legitimate star, and he's going to be around for a really long time, and you just wonder, how many guys like him. But Team France is going to be super formidable for years to come when it comes to international play. But, as a result of this as well, because he'd only played in 46 games, after he was the Rookie of the Year last year, he's an All-Star last year, but because of this, he can't be up for any of the postseason awards. So you didn't meet the threshold of games played. So if he was up for Defensive Player of the Year, All-NBA, those types of things, those are off the table since he did not play in 65 games. Didn't even come close to playing in 65 games. So it's been a tough year for the Spurs. You had the health issues with Greg Popovich. Now Wemby's out, but they have a very bright future. I think you feel great about them moving forward. But, Wembanyama out for the rest of the year. So there you go. There's a few things off the radar from around the entire pro sports world, the Big Four here in good old America.
We start this 5 o'clock hour or continue it with Robert Allen, sideline analyst for Oklahoma State. His thoughts about what Gundy said, and we had that little graphic about pressure. And then just overall, what's the mood in Stillwater plus Paul Catalina and his top 5. A little bit later, if we have the time. No, we have Mickey. I'm sorry, at 5:30, we have Mickey Spagnola, too, on the salary cap and some other, and Zach Martin's retirement. This is 365 Sports. The Waco Custom Marketplace. Had somebody today contact me. They were very nice offer to get me some steaks from a company. And I said, I now am getting my steaks at a local butcher shop. It's a local grocery store. Waco Custom Marketplace is where I've been getting my steaks for the longest of time. And then, of course, TexasBeefHouse.com was a sponsor, great sponsor for us for about 18 months or so. And you could always go there with the live auctions. But Waco Custom Marketplace, their butcher shop, I went in there, was it Saturday? It might have been Saturday. And I went in there to go see if they had any tiger shrimp. They have a butcher shop that has the pork and the poultry for sausage and chicken, etc., bacon, all that. And then, of course, in the back, beef, which from hamburger patties, hamburger ground beef, to big, thick, whatever kind of steak you want. New York strip, fillets, big, thick fillets, and then, of course, I love ribeyes, bone-in or not. But I went in there to look for some tiger shrimp because sometimes they'll have salmon, cod, whatever, catfish. But I was looking for some tiger shrimp because when I have bacon-wrapped shrimp, I do it when the tiger shrimp's easier to handle. You could put bacon around it. It just seemed like it holds together, and I love bacon-wrapped shrimp. They didn't have any that day, but I couldn't help it. I still ordered 4 big, thick, bone-in ribeyes, and then I have a tomahawk ribeye that I've had in my freezer, my deep freeze, for quite some time, but I was tempted to get one more of those. That's the kind that you could beat somebody in the head with it. They have what you need. The necessities of cooking anything, any day, any time, but also they have a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Bakery with fresh baked bread, kolaches, sweets and treats, pies, etc., and so much more. Fresh cold beer and wine off to the right. Waco Custom Marketplace, the Bauer family. They were and they continue to supply great product for restaurants throughout, not just the Central Texas area, but I've seen their trucks in the Dallas and Fort Worth area too delivering. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at Baylor.edu/alumni.
26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Robert Allen, sideline analyst, talk show host, Oklahoma State, Stillwater, and joins us on 365 Sports. It's been a while. Robert, we just tried to leave you alone last season. We just didn't think you'd want to talk much about it. It was, well, hey, Baylor's had a few of those along the way too. Everybody has. So how would you describe the mood? The schedule's out. We saw a couple of quotes from Gundy, which I enjoy him. I know you cover him on an everyday basis, basically. But how would you describe where the mood is of the Oklahoma State football fan base right now?
Oh, I think the fan base is curious. Mike made some comments in November that, he was frustrated. And they weren't taken well by the public. And the funny thing is he never said Oklahoma State fans. He just was basically talking about people who complain. And I guess because there was a lot of complaining in the fan base, everybody not everybody, but a lot of people thought the head coach was talking about them. So, we had, not only were we losing in football in Stillwater, but it became a little bit of a Peyton Place situation as well, which, you know what, when you lose, you're subject to all kinds of emotions, all kinds of attitudes. And we saw a lot of them last fall.
He has never, obviously, you're going to clash with the administration at times over a long career like he's had. But very publicly in the offseason, they had a 4-day little dust-up over a weekend about his contract in the future and all of these things. Would you say there's more tension between them now than there's ever been, or do you find that successfully worked out?
You know what, guys? Now we live in the same state with the University of Oklahoma and the Sooners, and not as a sideline reporter, not as a member of the media, but as an alum of the school, as a father that had 2 kids attend, one played football. I was always a little envious of what Oklahoma had. And the president passed away today, David Boren.
Yep.
But they were so in line down in Norman with the president and David Boren, with the athletic director and Joe Castiglione, and for all those years with Bob Stoops as the head coach. And in Stillwater, you had Boone Pickens, who, thank God, came around and cared and put his money where his mouth was. You had the athletic director that really brought him on board in Mike Holder, and then you had the head coach in Mike Gundy. And you had a president as well. They were never in line. It was amazing how much got accomplished, even though it was a little bit fragmented. It was a little bit like that family that has all the stories, except this family was winning a lot of football games. They had just in the last couple of years, with Dr. Schrum as president, Chad Weiberg as athletic director, and with Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State had that alignment. They really did. I mean, the president backed Mike, the AD backed Mike, Mike backed the president and the AD. It was really kind of good. And now what you've got is, and I don't know why, I can't tell you, but the Board of Regents has been, because I think they really caused that weekend. I was at the meeting. They went into executive session, and I know they called President Schrum and Chad Weiberg into the meeting. And when they walked out, and you can read the stories I wrote on it, I had never seen the look on those two individuals' faces like I saw when they came out of that executive session. And then, of course, later in the day, we find out that they're in the same room in the athletic, actually in Chad Weiberg's office, and they're renegotiating Mike Gundy's contract. Guys, 18 straight winning seasons. Top, this was the thing I wished Oklahoma State fans would have paid attention to a little bit last season. They're having a great season in Ames. Iowa State's working their way to the Big 12 championship game, and they ended up winning 10 games. It was the first 10-win season in Iowa State football history. Mike Gundy's had 6 in 18 years. I mean, OSU fans they were feeling down and out because of the season. They weren't appreciating. I get it. What have you done for me lately? But you still have to appreciate the body of work. So, and here's the sad thing too. I think Mike Gundy is appreciated in a lot of other locales, sometimes more than he is by his own school and his own fan base, which is crazy. But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is. And it is definitely a situation where you kind of see it shaping up to be like a be careful what you wish for type of thing, potentially. But yeah, that is very interesting. You brought up T. Boone Pickens, and I know he's been gone now for a few years, but he was such a staple of Oklahoma State athletics in so many ways, especially even to people on the outside. They kind of knew like he was the big money guy. But because of the timing of his passing, he has not been around for this whole era of NIL and all of these things.
Yeah.
How has that affected Oklahoma State? Are they still okay in that regard because there's others that have kind of filled in, or if you can possibly fill in his contributions, or was like you get where I'm coming from here? Like, did that have an effect that they're still feeling? Are they still feeling that? Yeah.
No, I get where you're coming from. They've had others. The baseball stadium was built by not an alum. I guess he is. He was in school at Oklahoma State for a couple of years. But Cecil Obrate, who he's also passed now too, built the baseball stadium, which is fantastic. Others have filled in. And in fact, I think there's a meeting coming up pretty quick with Chad Weiberg and some of the most influential alumni. There are some out there that certainly can maybe not rival T. Boone Pickens, but they're not far off. They're not far off that pedestal. So yeah, I mean, they're okay. They're going to be okay for this next year. Their NIL this season was probably was in the middle to lower middle of the Big 12, if you believe the numbers that were thrown out there. But the biggest thing, guys, and I'm kind of transitioning and I'm kind of picking spots here. Mike Gundy admitted in the middle of the season, I made a mistake. I didn't I didn't farm the portal as closely as I should have. We spent most of our money on keeping the guys that were here.
Yep.
And in some cases, those were okay. I mean, you wanted to keep Nick Martin, you wanted to keep Colin Oliver, but you didn't know one of them was going to go down in game 2 and the other in game 4 and not be back the rest of the season. You wanted to keep Alan Bowman. He had earned that, but Alan didn't have as good a year. The offensive line was all a bunch of veteran guys. I would have wanted to keep them too, but after about the first 3 or 4 games, they weren't the same for whatever reason. I don't know. So Mike Gundy realized last year, very early in the year, that he made a mistake. Now he's going to play the portal game. And he did here in the recent off season. They've got like 30 new players in this spring, and they're going to have most of the recruiting class in the summer. So by the time they get into summer workouts, there'll be close to 50 new players on this roster. You saw what Arizona State did, 45 new guys.
Yep.
45 new guys made the CFP playoff and gave Texas they should have beat Texas.
Yep.
They got screwed. They should have got the targeting call, probably could have gone down, tried their own field goal, and if they make it, they move on. So yeah, Mike, here's what we're seeing now in Stillwater. It's a whole different program. 2 new coordinators, all new position coaches. The only constant is the what they call the roster staff, and that's the recruiting director, Kenyatta Wright, a former linebacker, is the kind of GM. And then all of those guys are the guys that go on the road, recruit, evaluate. They've really divided it up more in an NFL fashion. And it's a whole different look, whole different feel. What I can't tell you is how much better will they be next year. I mean, until I see spring ball, till I see the guys that come in the summer, because there's a couple of those guys that are not freshmen, but they're portal guys that are coming in late. I've got to see what those guys look like. I got to see what Haas Haney looks like competing with these other quarterbacks. But this is a different way of doing things. And Mike Gundy, from about the midseason point on, said, "Look, I'm going to reinvent myself and reinvent this program because we're not dealing with the same dynamics, not anymore." And so he's embraced all the newness now.
I get they had a really good team. I'm particular on the quarterback with Alan Bowman. I know they liked him as a leader, and I know that having him back for that last year was something that you maybe didn't want to pass up. But was the quarterback thing kind of the flashpoint for him going, okay, because Alan Bowman helped them win a lot of games, but he didn't actually cause them to lose a lot. His numbers weren't great, Robert, 2 years ago.
No.
And maybe that's where they should have pushed a little bit more.
You know what? I'm going to put it more on the offensive line. And I'll tell you for 2 reasons. One, Bowman didn't feel as much pressure in the 23 season because Ollie Gordon was getting past the line of scrimmage 1.5 yards or more and making a lot of yards. So there was less pressure on Bowman in the passing game. This year, Ollie couldn't get back to the line of scrimmage. He was averaging being hit 1 yard deep in the backfield. I don't know who to put that on other than the offensive line. I don't. I mean, magic pixie dust, I can't. All I can say is what I saw. Ollie Gordon went from being the Doak Walker, and he still gained 880 yards. But he gained most of those 880 on his own. He wasn't getting a lot of help, not like the year before. So I kind of go back to the fact you had a lot of 6th, 7th year offensive linemen, guys that had a lot of bumps and bruises on them. Some of them are flat out used up. You spent money on them, 6 figures on every one of them, I think, and you didn't get the return. So that's where it stops with me. yeah, Bowman didn't have as good a season, but I didn't expect Bowman to win the games. I expected him to not lose them, and keep you in them. And that's what I think. That's where I go back to the offensive line. That's the other thing. The year before, Bowman hardly got touched. They averaged giving up a sack a game. This last year, Bowman was getting the heck beat out of it.
You know, and it's hard. I guess you could always, it's easy to look back, but it's almost like, okay, how long can you go with the guy? He's got the experience because everybody else was young at quarterback. I have one more question for you, Robert. We always appreciate your time.
And you know, on that topic, you remember the BYU game, they had an open week before BYU, and they did. Bowman went from first to third team. And they went with Garrett Rangel. Rangel starts the game. Oklahoma State's going up and down the field. They're playing even with BYU. And then Rangel tears up his shoulder on a long run, got caught from behind and dragged down, and that's where he injured the shoulder. They had a choice there. They could have put Smith in, who they did later in the year. But Mike Gundy grabbed Bowman and said, even though he'd been third team the entire 2 weeks leading up to that game, he goes, I'm going to put you back in, but you have got to run the football. Because the belief at that point was the way the O-line was playing, without the threat of quarterback run, Ollie wasn't going to get anything, and the passing game was going to be in trouble. If you go back and look at it, that's how bad Alan Bowman wanted to play. That's how big a competitor he is. He ran the ball like I've never seen him run it, and the defense lost the game on the last series. Oklahoma State had the lead. BYU had to go the distance of the field in like 30 seconds, and by God, they did.
Hey, man, we'll have you again once we get into spring drills, which, of course, is changing right in front of us with games being played or not. Appreciate it. It's good to hear from you again.
That real quick, Mike Gundy hadn't had a spring game in 3 years. He's going to have a spring game, but they won't be televised, and there'll be people at the gate looking for people who are suspiciously looking like college football coaches.
Yeah, there you go. That doesn't surprise me, the day and age of where we are. Robert, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time as always.
All right.
Thank you, Robert Allen, Oklahoma State sideline reporter, giving us a little bit of insight. Some of it, honestly, I just stopped worrying about what they were doing. They were just so bad at 3-9, kind of like 23 Baylor. They were so bad, but interesting. A bunch of transfers, 50-something, and changing up quite a bit. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. He's next.
He's right now.
All right, Mickey's there. There's my man, Mickey, with his Missouri Tigers, with 110 points against Alabama in basketball. I saw maybe even it was last night or whenever it was.
No, it was last night.
Yeah, last night. I saw
you needed 110 points to win.
Yeah, against Alabama and Auburn, you got to score 100 a game. All right, let's start with Zach Martin.
Anything going on?
Yeah. The timing of it, if it's Thursday, it's Mickey. So Zach Martin, Hall of Famer, broken down, obviously, the body, a great player. Was this expected? And there's no question he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but you never know in pro football.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, he had made overtures before in last offseason that this could be it. Then he kind of walked it back because I think he got tired of answering the question in training camp and early in the season. But I think after the injury, 11 seasons, and just the thought of having to rehab and start, basically get your body ready from scratch again, I think it was a little bit overwhelming. And I started getting the feeling near the end that he was thinking, you know what, I've done well. I've saved my money. My contract is up. I think that the writing was on the wall. I don't think it comes as a surprise to the Cowboys. And, they did some things with his contract last year to kind of restructure the restructure part of it, because going into last season, if this was going to be his this past year was going to be his last year, because of the restructure bonuses, they were going to have $17 million in dead money in this coming cap.
Mickey, he's part of an unfortunate fraternity when it comes to the Cowboys of DeMarcus Ware, Jason Witten, Tyron Smith, and him now that did not get to win a Super Bowl with the Cowboys, despite being first or second ballot Hall of Famers, depending on how the vote shakes out. And
are you holding that against them?
No. I think
if he was a quarterback, you would.
No, I know. I would not. Yeah, I absolutely wouldn't. No, you're right. But no, I'm not. It's just those four guys, I think for all the guys who went through this era, like that kind of sucks because they were the pinnacle of their position.
Did you throw Tony Romo in there?
No, he was not the pinnacle of his position.
He was what?
He was not at the pinnacle of his position. He was good. He wasn't Zach Martin, Jason Witten, DeMarcus Ware.
Oh, I get it. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I feel bad for Romo too, but
the organization, he was pretty damn good.
Yeah. No. But I'm just talking about Tony Romo shouldn't be a Pro Football Hall of Famer in my opinion, but
because he didn't win any Super Bowls
or playoff games.
Well, he won one.
Yeah, I mean, so
actually he won two.
Two playoff games. So
yeah.
I don't know how fair of a
No, I know
is,
what you're saying. Yeah. And it's tough to see, when those careers come to an end like that. And they were, he was one of the, biggest draft day decisions I thought they made when they knew they had to rebuild that offensive line. And it was almost year by year that Jason Garrett should get credit for saying, you know what, we got to rebuild the offensive line. So in his first draft, they get Tyron Smith. In the third draft, they trade down in the first round to the bottom and get Travis Frederick. And then the next year, they get Zach Martin. And a lot of times, teams won't spend draft capital like that on an offensive line. You would like to develop guys, right? As they did basically in the 90s with lower draft choices until they used all of a second round pick on Larry Allen. So, I think when they were putting this franchise offensive line together, getting him with the 16th pick in the 2014 draft was like stealing money.
I went through this earlier today, Mickey. The Cowboys had Tyron Smith at 11. Frederick might have been 13. Of course, eventually the health issues.
In 13. That's right.
Yeah. And then Zach Martin over a 4-year period of time. That's how you set up yourself for success. And maybe the best way to build a team. They had some good teams. They just never could finish. It was just, again, what's been their problem for a long time, the postseason or lack of success in the postseason.
Yeah. And, and if you go back and sort of look at it, you remember how the 14 playoff season ended, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't.
No catch?
Oh, the Des Bryant play, yeah.
Yeah, think about it all the time.
06, bad drop snap on the field goal.
Oh, in Seattle, yeah.
After the first down at the 2-yard line got reversed.
Oh, yeah. That part of it I always forget. That part of it I always forget.
07, Patrick Creighton's going to hit his head on the crossbar if he catches the pass, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he drops it.
Right there on the right
Terrell
side.
Owens
Yeah.
wasn't hurt. They've had weird things take place, right, to end playoff games. What happened in 2016?
Was it the throw on the sideline?
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers
throwing a BB
to Cook. Was it?
Yes.
Yeah. So you can't make that stuff up. And I'm not trying to give excuses, but weird stuff happened when you thought you had the game tied and it's going to overtime, and Green Bay ends up kicking a walk-off 51-yard field goal, right? But Zach Martin, that's one of the great careers in NFL history. I saw somebody figured out that his 7 Pro Bowls, all pros selections, ties the most by guards in the NFL. And the other 2 guys, it was Hannah. I forgot the other guy. The only 2 guards to have that many Pro Bowls in the Hall. At that, they're in the Hall of Fame. So, as you said, a first ballot Hall of Famer for sure.
All right, so Mickey, the salary cap comes out. It's a little bit higher than most everybody thought, maybe enough to play a little bit if you get the right people and the right contracts. Does this allow them in any way, shape, or form to go ahead and clear the air right now and get Micah Parsons signed, or is that still going to probably drag on?
Well, I think that depends on how much Micah Parsons wants, right? He's already counting $24 million on the 5th-year option. So, there's no gun to their head to sign him to an extension. They would like to lower the cap charge for this year. But again, if they can't get it done, they can't get it done. And then next year, he's probably if they want to keep him and they can't get an extension done, he's probably facing a franchise tag. And you won't want to do that, because I just looked at what the tag for if he's designated as a linebacker, like if he was up for a franchise tag this year, the franchise tag for a linebacker in 2025 is $27 million. So that's only going to go up, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, you'd like to do an extension, but you got to have 2 to play that game, right? And I don't know if everybody caught the little deal that Jerry threw down in the Schottenheimer press conference, because somebody challenged.
I did hear
you
it.
Did?
I didn't listen to a lot of that because I had time for the hour and a half. But
okay, so
was he when he said something to Dak about sometimes it's not the team?
He said something about Dak, if we could have gotten to if you would have signed the contract or something to that effect, meaning, everybody says, well, you waited, and now it cost you $40 million a year. Well, how do you know that they weren't asking for more than that? And that's why they got to that. And my information was they were asking for more than that. And that was the compromise of $40 million.
Mickey, so with the expansion of it, or the good news is they don't have to make, if they decided not to do anything, they're under the cap right now, which obviously they're not going to do. There's going to be guys who get cut, moved on, restructured, blah, 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 but they could
well, they won't get cut, Paul. They'll restructure Dak's contract. That's already a mechanism in it.
Yeah.
They'll restructure CD's contract. That mechanism is already in it. And that'll create some cap space that they can at least operate for 2025.
Yeah. So, but do you expect, especially with now Zach Martin leaving, at least them to maybe be more active in the offensive line market on free agency than they may have would?
But they don't
previously?
Who's getting rid of offensive linemen?
No, not many people, but because they have such youth on the offensive line, do they go get a veteran that's maybe a little bit more established than what they would have?
But he's got to be a free agent, right?
Yeah. there's a couple out there,
There are?
Yeah, a few. Like Kevin Zeitlers of the world, guys who've played a lot. Everybody they get is going to be a step down from Zach Martin, and they know that.
Yeah, and how much are these guys going to want?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But would they spend a little bit more at that position than maybe they would at some others? Because of the commitment you've made to Dak and making sure that, running game, all that gets better this year, and you don't maybe leave it up to some more unproven guys.
Well, here's my problem with that thinking. If some other team doesn't think that offensive lineman is good enough to keep, why do I want him? Maybe they have cap problems. I got cap problems. See, I think we got to think about it. You guys, and you probably know this watching other stuff. There's not enough offensive linemen to go around in the National Football League, right? What happened in the Super Bowl? Kansas City offensive line stunk, right? And they got beat. I go watch the East-West Shrine game here a couple of weeks ago, and the poor quarterbacks, the one side, they didn't have a good enough offensive lineman. And so these are the offensive linemen playing in the East-West that probably weren't good enough to be invited to the Senior Bowl. And the ones in the Senior Bowl are playing because they need to get to the combine and somebody to look at them. There's just not enough offensive linemen coming out of college that are creditable, after the first round. What are you getting? So I'm thinking if I'm a general manager and I got an offensive lineman, I got to do whatever I can to keep the guy. I can't let him go into free agency if he's that good. And if he is good, in free agency, I don't know what you can get, and how much does that guy want? There's no bargains. Let's put it that way.
No, I'm looking at the available guards, and look, my only thing about it was, do you go get a maybe, more experienced guy because you already have a lot of inexperience there on the line, or are they confident enough in Brock Hoffman to play that position this year?
I thought he played well enough to, take a chance on him, that I don't have to use a first-round pick on a guard when I've already got a first-round pick at a guard, and he's pretty good, Tyler Smith, right?
Yeah.
But if I can draft a tackle capable of playing guard to start the career, then maybe I think about that, or at least in the second round or third round, drafting maybe a guard to challenge Brock Hoffman for that spot. But again, am I good at tackle? Am I good at running back? Am I good at wide receiver? There's so many other things they've got. Look, we look at how great the offensive line was in the early 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
The highest draft choice until Larry Allen got there in 94 in the second round was Mark Stepnoski in the third round. That was it. They developed those offensive linemen. I don't know if that's, if you can do that these days, because I'm not sure what the colleges are developing at the guard position.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Mickey. I do want to, again, they have so much that they have to fill there that it's just going to come down to, what's available in the draft and all that, because they're not, like you said, they're not big on free agency. I was just curious if losing a guy like that maybe doubles the amount they may spend. Like if they were going to spend $3 million on a guy for a year deal, would they spend $6 million on somebody who might be a little bit more sought after?
Or you bring in a veteran that's, is an insurance policy there.
Yeah.
But remember, you already spent the first round pick, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I've already given it to Ashton Genty.
Right. So you can't get a guard.
Yeah, but look, I do this a lot. Wyatt Milam in the second round from West Virginia is my favorite one there.
Okay.
Guy's a road grader for sure. But when it comes to, you mentioned the tackle, Terrence Steele installed on the right, a big cap number for him. But now with that's probably going to be one of the things they rework, right?
They'll restructure that.
Yeah, they
right.
rework him. But then how do they feel about Tyler Guyton? Is that a big question to you?
Well, I think that it's a first round pick.
Yeah.
Now it's number 29, so basically second round grade, right?
Yeah.
So I think they should leave it open for, competition. I think Awesome Richards, when he got the opportunity to play left tackle, he played well. And he can also play guard too, by the way. So that'll be an interesting thing. See, they've got so many things, you guys, that they've got to answer before they even get to the draft, right? One of the questions was, is Zach Martin, going to come back and play? Okay, we got that answer. DeMarcus Lawrence, he wants to play. Can they re-sign him here? Because if they can't, then defensive end is a need. What happens at running back? Can they sign Rico Dotto back for something to have a running back and then add to it? You got to do something there. And oh, by the way, who's your number 2 wide receiver?
Yeah. Good
Who's
question.
your middle linebacker?
Yeah.
Who's your other outside linebacker if Overshown's not ready to come back and play? And can you re-sign Osa Odigizua at defensive tackle? Because if you can't, then you need one. So they've got so many other places to figure out from a cap standpoint on money than just sitting here now going, well, we got to have a guard. Because I see these mock drafts and I know what everybody's doing, right? Well, Zach Martin's going to retire. They need a guard. So in the first round, they're giving him a guard. I've got so many needs. I can't spend a first round pick on a guard. It's a guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of wish list, and there's a lot of things that could happen. About the time you think you're going to get one player, then somebody else takes him, and then whatever else. And Mickey, thank you, man. We got a break here, but we appreciate your time. It's going to be fun. It's a day when we get you on, and here you are.
It always happens, doesn't it?
Yep. Zach Martin retires. The salary cap goes up a little bit more than everybody has, and everyone wants to go play like Monopoly money with it. Thanks for your time. We appreciate you, buddy.
Good talking with you guys.
Mickey Spagnola with us most Thursdays around 5:30 with us, and a lot on the table, and that was kind of fun, and I hope you enjoyed that. Paul Catalina wraps us up in a moment with the top 5.
To be your best requires commitment, dedication, and intensity. It's what defines elite athletes and inspires Airwave to find new ways to optimize your performance. Introducing Airwave Recovery, a mouthpiece designed to work while you sleep to further unlock your potential. Airwave Recovery features our patented reflex technology, small integrated bumps uniquely positioned to activate your tongue's natural response. Your tongue will instinctively move forward, opening your airway and improving your quality of sleep. And thanks to our patented fitting material and a purpose-designed support wall, you'll enjoy a secure, comfortable fit all night long. With Airwave Recovery, you sleep better and recharge faster. Airwave Recovery, recharge your potential.
Protect your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, NordVPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 brought to you by Ticket Club. Forget the fees, just big savings. Click the link in the description to find out more.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5. Man, we've gone through almost all the positions. I have not gotten to the specialist yet, which I will. You want me to find 5 long snappers? I don't know if I can. I know there's 5 long snappers available, and 5 of them won't get drafted. I might do, 2 kickers, 2 punters, and a long snapper, but that would be the last one of this. But these are the linebackers in the 2025 draft. This class is probably richer in the middle than it is at the top, but really in the middle, you can find good linebackers in the middle of a draft. The Zach Thomases and Dat Wins and Sam Mills of the world, all kind of in the middle of the draft. But let's go to the top 5. Demetrius Knight from South Carolina. No later than the second round. Really big guy, really strong guy. Can blitz, can cover, fantastic against the run, and played in a really good defense this year. The second South Carolina player on the defensive side that I've put on this year. And I left off Kyle Kennard, who is one of the better defensive ends in the country. But, it's top 5, not top 7 or 8. But Demetrius Knight Jr. from South Carolina, plug and play linebacker, even if he is a second-round draft pick. Number 4, Chris Paul Jr. from Ole Miss. Big playmaker. Here you see him with a turnover, but big guy, really gets around, plays in the middle really well. I think you can probably move him around the formation a little bit, but Chris Paul Jr. for sure, one of the best linebackers in this draft. The Ole Miss defense is going to have a hard time replacing him. Number 3, Barrett Carter from Clemson. Maybe my favorite player at linebacker in this whole draft because when you talk about sideline to sideline and shutting plays down, that's what Barrett Carter can do. Since he's such a good tackler, he's got great feet and great vision. And whether it's the running game, the short passing game, whatever it is, sideline to sideline, he reads, he reacts, he gets there, he stops big plays, he stops small plays, he stops all the kind of plays. He is a superb athlete. I thought he would come out last year and didn't. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. did, wound up winning a Super Bowl in his rookie year with his father's team, the Eagles. But Barrett Carter from Clemson, I thought was better than Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who was really good. Barrett Carter out this year, and maybe my favorite linebacker in the draft, although Jack Kaiser from Notre Dame is kind of up there as well. Carson Schweisinger from UCLA at number 2. High for a UCLA player given their lot in life this year, but a true bright spot on that defense. You see he's really big. He can line up on the outside and rush the passer. He also is just really good against the run. Kind of a good old school linebacker. Where's number 49? He's not trying to be fancy. He's trying to be gritty. I like that. Wear 49 in the pros. Who wears 49? It's you. That's going to be your number, buddy. But Carson Schweisinger from UCLA, one to watch in the draft. And number 1, Jihad Campbell from Bama. The best linebacker in this draft. Probably, again, this is not a top-heavy linebacker class. It's like a middle-heavy linebacker class. But Jihad Campbell will go the highest of all of these guys, whether that's 15 to 20 or so, more than likely. But you never know. And then other guys, kind of listed as defensive end linebacker. But of the true linebackers, of which Jihad Campbell is the best one, great tackler, great in space, sideline to sideline like Barrett Carter, he is the absolute best one. And you could do a lot worse than getting a guy who played for Nick Saban and really has that Saban kind of mentality when it comes to attacking the offense. That's going to do it for this top 5. That's going to do it for Thursday. I have nothing else to say. So, Smokey, wrap it up or whatever you do.
Garrett Ross, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Emery Winter is dialing up 365 Sports tonight, 10:30 every weeknight on the local CW. And Andrew is doing his magic, too, for Craig Smoak. Thank you, Craig. And Paul Catalina, thank you, to all of our great sponsors and those of you who consume what we do, whether it's on YouTube, 365 Sports, or also on Twitter at 365 Sports YT. We'll have Scott Drew tomorrow. We'll have Joel Corey, who is fantastic at looking at the cap and what teams in the NFL can do, which, of course, can affect the NFL draft with the players that perhaps you follow quite a bit, too, plus much more. I'm David Smoak. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your commitment to us. This is 365 Sports.